So my next guest, who I'm going to pull up here in just a second, I believe, there's his name, Matt Cubbler. He's a U.S. Army veteran, 25 plus years in law enforcement. And there's some other things I could share about his past, but I'll let him do that if we go there. But the thing that struck me about him was, again, through Instagram, he found me, or I found him actually. I got on a kick about 6-7 months ago, maybe around March of this year, going through kind of the whole Benghazi thing. And I remembered the Benghazi 4 and Tyrone Woods' father gave a talk where he had reached out to Barack Obama, and Barack Obama got back to him about why his son was placed in the danger that he was placed in and why nobody helped, et cetera. And how Ty Woods' father also got connected to Alan Perot, who is known as the Falconer. And if you guys have not heard of this, I'll link in the description to, I forget the name of the documentary, but the documentary about Alan Perot and how he knew where Osama bin Laden was. He had proof of it. He knew where Osama bin Laden was for, basically a decade as he sold Falcons to these, Middle Eastern kings. And occasionally he would see Osama bin Laden, just walk in, because he was also in the whole sport of falcon hunting. And how when Alan Perot would go to our Department of Defense or CIA or FBI, they would ignore him, or they would say, go away. Just we don't want to hear it. And finally he was threatened, and he was told, if you come to us with this again, what's going to happen is you're going to see a helicopter come over the horizon and you're going to be disappeared off the face of this planet. So I posted some things on that, and then I got into kind of the theories and the ideas of whether Osama bin Laden was actually killed at the date that we think he was killed. Now, all this is, if you're wondering, why are you talking about this? Because it's all connected to 9/11, all of it. Osama bin Laden was the scapegoat, and they had to have one. The whole problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic. That's what these cabal, these globalists, they learned a long time ago. We will create a problem, then the people will react in a way that they're desperate. They need something. They're looking for answers. Then we can come in with the solution. But to do that, they can't ever know that you created the problem. So in this case, it had to be Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, with Osama bin Laden at the helm. And I'm going to show something later that'll just show how silly that idea really is, even though we all bought it for that reason. We were reacting to a serious crisis. Now, to bring it back to Matt, and I hope he's watching this, I was really struck because I posted a few more things, and then I didn't make the claim, but I put forth the idea that perhaps Robert O'Neill, who supposedly took out Osama bin Laden in 2011, 2012, no, it would have been, Matt will tell us in a minute, but maybe a decade ago. Robert O'Neill was supposedly the special operations guy to do that. And Robert O'Neill found, or had been sent my Instagram, I think, because it was making some waves. It got a lot of views. And he was like, he was nice, but he just said, hey, a lot of what you're saying is probably right, but I definitely killed, I saw him. I killed him. And, what am I going to say? Like, here I'm a guy making Instagram videos, and here's the guy that's, been on Fox News and Dinesh D'Souza's podcast and all this, with his story. And to be fair, I was not that intimately acquainted with his story. So I didn't know about all these contradictions apparently, but Matt Cubbler jumped in there and it was like, yeah, you killed Osama bin Laden as much as I killed JFK. And I was like, whoa, this guy's either like an ass who just like doesn't know it. He just, wants to make a splash, or he knows something. And we got into some conversations, which I'll get to in a minute. But I was shocked at the level of understanding he had about special operations teams, the corruption within those. And I was taken aback by his knowledge. And then we also got onto the subject of 9/11. So I've introduced long enough. Let me pull him in here. Give me just a moment. Guess number 2. All right. What's up, dude?
What's up, buddy?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, how about me? You good?
Yeah, sounds good. Could you hear that whole little intro, the lead in?
No, I didn't want to leave the screen because I was worried I was going to screw something up
Oh,
if
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, I
I
was
jumped
basically
off.
telling everybody a little bit about how I got to know you, and I just said I was shocked at this guy on my Instagram because, I had made a few videos about that period from 9/11 to Osama bin Laden's missing. Is he really missing? And then he's taken out. And was he really taken out? And I was just questioning it in some videos. And Robert O'Neill, of all people, jumped on my Instagram and was like, "Hey, dude, you're probably right about a lot of this stuff. Who knows?" He kind of that, playing the mystery game. But he said, "But when it comes to Osama bin Laden, I saw the man with my own eyes. I killed him." And me not knowing that much, I was going to leave it alone. I was like, "Okay, you said it. You want to come on my podcast?" I was going to do what a lot of people probably do, and they're like, "Well, shit, I can't argue with that guy. So, man, I'd rather just like have you come tell your story." And then he gets to go solidify this narrative. You jump in there and say something along the lines of, "Yeah, yeah, O'Neill, like you killed Osama bin Laden as much as I killed JFK." And I was like, "What the heck? Who is this dude?" So, and then I noticed a couple other comments you'd made that seemed pretty intelligent. You weren't just being an ass. So I reached out to you and I said, "Hey, you may want to watch and provide some commentary on the next video I post. Look out for the one titled How I Killed Osama bin Laden," which was him telling his own story. So, Matt, I gave you an introduction already about your 25 years in law enforcement, U.S. Army vet. And also, I did not say this, you've studied special forces, special operations for almost a decade now in some detail, including the corruption of them. So, I probably left some things out. If there's anything else you want to intro yourself with, please do.
We'll wing it. That's how I live my life.
All right. Well, so I forget the question I asked you before I said that. I guess we'll start here. You wrote that Robert O'Neill and I believe it's Mark Bissonette. That was his. What would you
Matt
call him?
Bissonette.
What is it?
Matt Bissonette.
Matt Bissonette. Yeah, they've both written books about their experiences, and actually their books contradict each other's a bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to O'Neill himself and why you distrust his story and maybe his character.
Well, that's a deep and open wound for me because it's personal on a certain level, in which I, I mentioned to you my buddy Job, who was commander of SEAL Team 4, Joe Price, was found dead in his bunk in 2012, 2 days before Christmas, and
Yes.
in Afghanistan. So I began looking into his death on behest of the family. And through that, I got to know a lot about a lot of different things involving the SEALs. And the whole Osama bin Laden, who killed him, that was part of it, of the information that I was brought in on. And for me, knowing what I know at the depth in which I know it is through confidential sources from inside the SEALs, from people who were on that raid, from people who trained the people up for that raid, the one for Osama bin Laden. Is there lag going on with my
There
video at
is,
all?
well, yeah, the video is a little messed up. Hopefully it'll fix itself here in a minute. But the audio
I'm in
is
the middle of
great.
nowhere.
The audio is
Okay, I'm
great.
in the middle
So
of nowhere. All right. Because I could try to get on my computer if it makes it easier. I'm on my phone. Just I wasn't sure with the mic whether or not it was going
yeah,
to
I mean,
pick up or
I
not.
would rather have clear video of you. So if you want to do
Okay.
that, I can play a video just to kind of like break up the time.
All right,
All right.
cool.
Yeah. So go back to where I just asked the question of when it comes to O'Neill himself, and I do love the fact you shared you're one of your best friends, if not your best friend, was you said the leader of SEAL Team 4.
Yeah, we weren't best friends. We were all the same classes. We hung out together. We were good buddies, but I
Yeah.
don't know if best friends would classify me as in that group. But he was Joe Price was commander of SEAL Team 4. He to get to be a commander of one of the however many SEAL teams there are, 10, 11 SEAL teams. It's hard to imagine the amount of sacrifice and hard work it would take to get to that level. So he became the commander of SEAL Team 4, died in 2012, 2 days before Christmas. He was found dead in his bunk with a single gunshot to his head. And that stuck in my craw a little bit because knowing the guy, he's not a He's not a quitter, and he's certainly not a guy that's going to commit suicide. So for years, I just sort of let that fester inside of me. And then in late 2017, early 2018, his family came to me and asked me to look into it because they weren't getting the answers they wanted from the Navy. And they asked if I could look into it with my background in law enforcement. I said, certainly. And obviously he's a friend, so I wanted to make sure I did my best for his legacy and his memory and for his family. And through that investigation into his death, which I was able to determine was not suicide, I was brought in to an inner world that I didn't want to be a part of. And I thought I was just looking at a buddy's death and there was something hinky about it. Little did I know there was a systemic nature of corruption and criminality within the Navy SEAL community. And on every team, from the quote unquote best of the best SEAL Team 6 to every other team within the Naval Special Warfare community. So I also was brought in on some of the higher, more priority ones that everybody knows about, the information on those, and one of which was the Osama bin Laden raid and who was actually responsible for killing bin Laden, and the whole Bissonnette O'Neill book deal prior to they both had book deals prior to the raid.
Book deals about being on the team that killed him
about being the one who killed Osama bin Laden.
Yeah,
they both had deals prior to the raid. So
yeah, that doesn't seem right.
No, that's a red flag. And then Bissonnette wrote his book. O'Neill wrote his book. Yes, they conflicted. Each claimed to be the one who killed him. Bissonnette didn't get permission or didn't get the blessing from the corrupt leaders within the SEALs. And so he was squashed, and all the money that he had earned from that book deal had to be returned, turned over to the Navy because he didn't get the blessing from the Navy. O'Neill did. So his story is the one that the Navy Special Warfare community went with. It's not fact by any stretch. Was he there? And I always preface everything I say with, I am not lessening the amount of bravery and courage it takes to go into a combat zone and fight.
Right.
That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about if you're doing criminal activity, if you are covering up crimes, if you are lying to promote yourself to make money, and if the Navy is fostering that type of environment, then I got a problem with all of that. Did Rob O'Neill do some brave shit in his career? Absolutely. Is he a hero on many levels? I'm sure he is. Is he a liar on this case? Yeah, I would venture to say that a large majority of what he talks about is not factual to him.
Yeah.
That he is not the author of that story, the true story. And you can go back to, Roberts Ridge in 2002, attack Agar, Afghanistan, with Britt Slabinski, team leader of the blue team of SEAL Team 6, who led a team to go attack some Chechen Al-Qaeda members up on a mountain that should have never happened. It was a horrible weather scenario. And Tim Zemansky, who was commander of SEAL Team 6, ordered it. A bunch of teams refused to go on it within SEAL Teams, the Dev group. The team took it. A guy named John Chapman, an Air Force combat controller, was on that crew. They were going in for a landing, got hit with an RPG. Neil Roberts, who was the reason why it's called Roberts Ridge, was not hooked in. He was already unhooked to get out of the helicopter, and he fell. And they then made another pass and tried to land again, got shot down completely out of the sky, crash landed. They all bailed out. The story was that Britt Slabinski led a group of SEALs up this mountain and killed all these Chechen Al-Qaeda rebels, and he was the hero. When in reality, it was John Chapman, the Air Force combat controller, who did it. And it wasn't, had it not been for 15 years of cover-up, this would have been national news until CIA drone footage came out and showed, because they were able to take the radio frequencies and match them with who did what. So the beacons were going off and they were able to show who did what on the mountain that day. And it was John Chapman.
Yeah.
And so I call that the original sin, even though there probably were some before that, but that was the one that they found out the pattern and how they can cover something up and get away with it.
Well, explain from your perspective on the why. You got a friend that did not commit, and you proved that to me with a photo. You said, Jeremy, this is a photo of the death scene. You sent it to me, and you were like, look at the blood on the. I don't remember. All I remember is the official story versus that photo was two very, very different things. So it was obvious, like, okay, this has been a placed setup to get people to believe what they want people to believe. But what's the point? Like, why would they do that? Why would they do, leave John Chapman hung out to dry, or pick that ridge in the first place to go to? Like, are these just bad decisions? Like, what's going on here?
Well, first of all, the root of all things is money. Greed, fame, the belief that they were untouchable, and rightfully so, they were, and they are still. Job's case will never be brought to light. The patterns by which they're able to get people within his close circle, who are the only ones that have the ability to request his case be open. They know that they don't spend time going to mom and sister, or dad and sister, saying, let's bring you into the fold. Let's treat you like family. Let's get you things. Let's send you as Gold Star family members and to all these things. And we're going to pay for everything and give them all of this feeling of importance and value because their loved one was killed. It's pretty much only the wife who gets that. And when the only person that can request the case be open would be the immediate family. And if he wasn't married, it would be the parents, but he was married. So his wife was the one that has the power to make that request. And that's not happening because they've done a good job of bringing her into the fold. And she's a good woman. I feel horrible for her. He's got a daughter who's just graduated high school. I believe she just graduated. There's a lot, but they're good at what they do. The Naval Special Warfare community is very good at closing the ranks and keeping everything in-house and circling the wagons because they're all complicit. What I was told by several SEALs, several high-ranking SEALs who are now retired, who were commanders and above, that's up to 60% of the Navy SEAL community is compromised across the board. It used to be they would go recruit the best of the best, the brightest, most physically fit, most moral, high character kids that were athletes that did community service. That's who they wanted. Now they're getting the broken, angry, fit, wayward young man.
People they can control. It's like a microcosm
Absolutely.
of what they're doing with the culture at large. Let's get these people confused, broken, and then they're controllable, and they've got no moral sense of right and wrong anymore. That's America at large, but you're saying specifically within they need the SEALs to be that way because then they can get them to do what they want.
And you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, I've always been a doubter. I've been a conspiracy theorist since I was a little kid. I mean, my first book report I ever wrote in middle school was on how Lee Harvey Oswald could not have killed John.
I didn't know that. That's
I wrote a 15-page term paper on how he couldn't have been the one to do it. And I did. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, this type of stuff. So, I mean, this isn't new to me, but I was more specific for events that I was focusing on, not necessarily the global picture of the world.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Trump ran and won. And then I saw the next 4 years. And then obviously midway through that period, I was brought in on my buddy's investigation to his death. And it's when I got deep into the weeds with Job's investigation and then the subsequent information I got about the other incidents with SEALs and then the cancer that's within the SEALs and how deep it runs, that I start to notice patterns. And when I was in the Army, I was a cryptanalyst, U.S. Army intelligence. So patterns was kind of my thing. And that's what I've always done as far as law enforcement investigations and trying to figure out, especially with multiple crimes, whether there's patterns. So I saw a pattern. And then obviously COVID came.
Yeah.
And then the same pattern. And then the 2020 election, the same pattern. The Clinton emails, the same pattern. Like all of this stuff, they use the same pattern. And that's when the light bulb started really going off for me. And that took me to places that I never thought I would go to in my heart. And we talked about this with patriotism and
Yes.
how, the things that I've lived and bled for, that I thought to be 100% true in my soul, that there was no amount of convincing me that what I was doing was for a love of a country that deserved to have my love. It shook me to my core, dude.
Yeah.
Like it rattled me hard. And to think that our government could do that to its people and to people across the world, whether you're looking at the reasons why we went into, Iraq and the Gulf War and from everything on. And then after 2000, after 9/11 and then going into Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all this stuff, that these fabricated wars, emergencies, anything they can fabricate, they will fabricate in order to create the outcome they're looking for.
Yeah. I was just talking. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
But for me, when I found that to be, when it really hit me, when I saw the connection pieces between the people within the SEAL higher ups and the Biden family and Joe Biden's brother and his control of the Eastern Seaboard, the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and like who the players are and where their power structure lies and how the networks interconnect and how the people that are involved in the SEAL specifically are all interconnected within the Bush, Biden, Clinton sphere.
Yeah.
From young age through their ascension. And that's the part that I really was like, man, we're fucked.
Do you think Trump is a part of that inner American cabal, we'll call it? You're not mentioning international names, and that's fine. But the Bidens, the Clintons, the Bushes, obviously those guys have been an establishment group for a long time. And they all it seems to me, unless they're amazing actors, they all hate Trump, and it's one of the only reasons why there's some things that Trump, does. And I think for a lot of people like you and I that have been logical looking at it, he bothers me on some things pretty badly. However, like the fact that they seem to hate him so much, I'm kind of like, okay, he's not really in that club. And that gives me hope. What's your take on that?
So again, I deal with patterns. So when I was researching Trump, so in the lead up to the election in 2016, I was a Ben Carson guy. Because I always thought if you could operate on a womb and do a heart surgery on a baby that's a fetus inside a woman that's like 9 weeks along, you got my vote.
Yeah, and,
like
and especially growing up in the projects on top of that. Like, come on, I get it. Yeah. And
then the closer things got, and I saw Trump's popularity growing, and I think he's a narcissistic prick. I really do. I don't think he doesn't hide it. And if you just go back and, the internet's a dangerous and great thing. If you just go back and look at any interview Donald Trump has ever done, he has remained consistent. He may have flipped parties, but his message never changed.
Yeah.
And, if you go, there was an interview with him like 1979, he's sitting up in Trump Tower, 150th floor, whatever the hell it was, with some lady sitting on a windowsill talking about, would you ever run for president? He was in his 30s. And the things he said about what he would do if he was running this country has been what he said he was going to do, and then what he did. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't trust anyone anymore implicitly. But if there's anybody that I believe has the shot of not being involved in it, it's probably him. Everyone else that's in the field today for the 2024 election, I don't trust. I wouldn't vote for. I would abstain from voting if they were the choice for the party.
Would you include DeSantis in that?
Yeah. I don't. Something about him makes me want to punch him in the face.
Well, Well, he's tied in with. He's got the Bush establishment backing him, and maybe that's just because they hate Trump so bad they'd rather have anybody else. But to me, like at this point, if I was him, with the way the Bushes are supporting, BLM and all the, they're basically like Democrats 6 years ago, is what the Bush families are. If I was DeSantis and I was the real deal, I'd say, I really don't want your support, and I would publicly say it. Yeah. Maybe political, suicide, but that's what I would do. I want to ask you about this, because you talked about getting jaded, and jaded for good reason. So I should say just being realistic about where we are at. One of the things you said to me that really hurt, I was like, because I was starting to trust you. The more you were writing, I mean, we did a lot of dialogue just on Instagram. And I was, you were vetting each other in a way too, where I'm saying, does this guy really know his stuff? And you continued to back up your claims. And I was like, okay, I believe him. But then you said some things. I was like, please don't say that, man. Don't say that. And you were talking about like Marcus Luttrell and Jocko Willink and all these, brand named guys who are now with a brand named entity, SEAL Team 6 or the Navy SEALs. And I want to tie this back in at some level to 9/11. We don't have to go there yet, but at the end of the day, the taking out of Osama bin Laden, the lone survivor story, all that only has power if the official narrative is the real deal. If what really we were sold by, the media, the Bushes and all of that is the real deal, then all of this stuff, the books, the movies, it's like, you can jump for joy in those movies and cheer them on. But then when you realize, wait, that's not what happened on 9/11. Well, then it becomes, tragic because there are courageous men. Like you said, they're doing courageous thing. We're not taking that away from them, fighting and protecting the man beside them at minimum. Right. But the branding piece of it, it's a very corporate thing now. The media is involved. I didn't know how much money was involved in branding the Navy SEALs. Talk a little bit about that. I didn't mean to say too much or steal thunder, but
you're
yeah, tell me your thoughts on that.
So again, it goes back to the 2002 Roberts Ridge. They found out that they can control a narrative even when irrefutable evidence to the contrary comes out. They can control the narrative. And what they did, Britt Slabinski, who was the team leader for that mission on Roberts Ridge, as word came out that there was going to be a release of this drone footage, and it was going to show that he did not do what he said he said he did. Then the questions became, well, do you remember when you said in the original interview, when they were doing the press tour of how amazing hero he was, and then as years go on, and it's conversely to Trump, where everything is the same for 40 years, Britt Slabinski started to get fog of war. And his story started to become less and less clear and less specific and less and less, and he became a victim. He went from being a liar to a victim. And then they gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor. I feel like I'm talking about the movie Elf when he's talking about how he got to New York City through the land of whirly twirly raindrops. And then I walked through the Lincoln Tunnel. Like, that's what I felt like. That's kind of what happened with Britt Slabinski. He lied. He was heroic, but lied, spent years lying, lies about to be revealed, shift the marketing component to what they're doing for the SEALs, to the branding, to make him a victim, give him a Congressional Medal of Honor, rushed Congressional Medal of Honor, which has the same citation as the true hero of that day, John Chapman, got on his posthumously after Britt Slabinski got his.
Yes.
So what they realized was they could take any narrative and turn it into whatever they want you to believe. Even if some truth comes out to the contrary, there's a mechanism in place to backdoor that and make everybody a victim.
Are these guys, whether it's Slabinski or whether it's Robert O'Neill, just using those two, are they under threat, do you think? Because that's what I sense. I can see fear in O'Neill's eyes. And, he's drinking a lot and, he just got arrested in Texas and all this, which, hey, I mean, it happens. It's happened to me before. But I just sense, like you pointed out a few things, like, okay, notice, Jeremy, his story changes on some key elements, interview to interview. Now, I can't remember what those components were, but they were real. You can bring them up, but they have to tell the lie in order to be bribed with things like a book deal. You're going to make millions of dollars and be a brand name for us. And B, like, you're also going to get to be seen as more of a hero. And then C, if you don't do this, either we'll find somebody else or we're going to hurt you. And, you may find yourself gone. So there's those elements. And then once the lie, like you're saying, becomes too apparent that it's going to be discovered, they have to make him a victim of like PTSD. And I have seen that happen where a guy's story is getting The ends are too loose, and now he's got PTSD. So what he says can't be trusted, and he's a victim. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yep. Yeah, there's no doubt. And I'm listen. Well, are they afraid? No, I think they're more afraid of what would happen if the truth came out and they didn't have the net underneath them. That's the Navy SEALs.
Oh, could you imagine if O'Neill, if it came out that he did not kill Osama bin Laden and that he knew that he didn't? I mean, that would mean like his life's work of the last 10 years was a lie. And, it'd be like a Lance Armstrong thing. He would just have to disappear somewhere.
And I think that's they build them up so big. And this is all through the Navy SEAL Foundation. So just like any other foundation, the Clinton Foundation, the Gates Foundation, whatever foundation, name it, by an elite, it's a money laundering scheme. That's all it is. They're just washing money to use for nefarious purposes or their own personal gain, while also doing some nice stuff for some people to make it look good on the surface. And the Navy SEAL Foundation has been well known amongst the people that I deal with as being a money laundering operation. There is rumors out there, and I'm not going to say it's 100% facts. I have not physically seen it, but I've talked to enough people that have told me that, during when the war shifted from a large troop style war where we have hundreds of thousands of troops over in the Middle East fighting to a more special operations centric, smaller type operation, things got a little weird as far as money, morals, things of that nature. We were sending over pallets of money to give to these guys that are in middle of nowhere bases in whatever country, Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria, wherever they are. And they're using that money to buy favors, pay off mullahs, give to the community to get them to like them, things like that. Snitches, whatever they need. And then some of it, from what I've been told by many sources, some of it was used to buy heroin. And that heroin was then shipped back to the United States on military cargo ships to the eastern shore of Maryland and then distributed to drug dealers. And that money was then funneled through the Navy SEAL Foundation. And again, I don't know this to be fact. This is what I've been told by several sources. So when you think about that, when you just think about tax dollars,
yeah,
appropriated, illegal things happening, that money, that illegal thing that was purchased, brought back and then sold at 10x the value of what was purchased.
Right.
And then not to mention what it's doing to the people on the street that are ingesting this stuff, but what it's doing to fund the machine that is the brand of the Navy SEAL.
Right. And, I think of that, you hear about like what's going on the southern border, but you mentioned Biden's brother kind of being over the ports of the Eastern Seaboard, I believe you said.
Eastern Shore of Maryland, yeah.
Right. So it's another perfect access point because he's going to, give the pass to these illicit activities because it means big money to keep this machine going.
And you think about the brand. I mean, the brand was created originally. I would say that the start of the brand was by Richard Willink. Can't pronounce his last name. The guy that in the 80s that wrote the books, one of the early SEALs that wrote books, Marinkov, or I can't remember his last name exactly, but he was kind of the start of it. He started talking about SEAL stuff and making money off it, and he was poo-pooed by most SEALs. Didn't like him because they're supposed to be the silent warriors. They're not supposed to talk about the shit they do. And then, after 9/11, and they saw the length that this was probably going to go to as far as time and the involvement of the SEALs. Because I mean, you got to remember the SEALs. There wasn't a lot of stuff going on between Vietnam and the Gulf War. Like there wasn't a whole lot of wars going on. There was Grenada and that, but I mean, there wasn't a whole lot happening.
Right.
So our military wasn't actively engaging in conflict for a couple decades. And then they saw, we're going to go fight terrorism. And, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the military industrial complex really did well in that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So when you can just keep making Javelin missiles and cruise missiles and Tomahawk missiles and tanks and aircraft and all that kind of stuff. And so they get shot down. We'll make more. We make more money off the tax dollars. So the brand, they kind of knew that the table was set for them to grow and become something. And Roberts Ridge, again, I go back to that. They realized how to cultivate a story narrative and keep it going for a long period of time.
Well, I mean, I feel that they did that with 9/11 itself.
Oh yeah,
don't you?
But I don't know. I'm sticking specifically with the SEALs, but right. Everything again is the pattern. So I think the pattern of taking a narrative, having enough people within the inside and outside of the narrative. So within the SEAL community and the people that are within the network of the outside of the SEAL community, within an administration or Congress or the deep state component, the CIA, things like that. The agencies mm-hmm. and the administrations were benefiting from all of this. We all know that everybody in Washington's got a hand in some lobbyist pocket, some defense contractor's pocket. Everybody's getting paid. Everybody gets paid. And some of them getting paid by the same people. It doesn't matter if you're left or right or center or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that knowledge that everybody is sort of complicit in this crime kept everybody sort of in the same box. And that box was able to be moved down the road for 20 years. I mean, 20-year.
Why did they kill your friend?
I believe, well, Joe was, and I'll just touch on Joe a little bit. Joe was a Boy Scout. Literally, he was like the white knight, and he was the guy that when he ascended through all of the proper ways that if you're a leader, you look and you go, yeah, he deserved that role, or yeah, he earned that. And every one of those, he was the person that the Navy was putting out in front to be like a spokesperson, because he was such the Navy SEAL. What they would before the brand became the brand, I will put it that way. Before it became too big of a brand. And he was the perfect fit for the Navy SEAL role.
Right.
And I believe a few weeks before, so there was one of his guys got killed as a retaliation for some stuff that had happened with a local Afghani boy, where he was killed and then thrown by members of Army Special Forces and Navy SEALs. And they threw him over the wall of the compound, his family compound. And the family took retribution, and one of Job's, they went out on a mission, and there was an ambush, and one of his guys was killed. And as Job, I believe he started to dig into that a little bit and saw what had happened. And there was going to be some charges brought up on some people. Mm-hmm. And I think the SEAL hierarchy did not want that to happen. They wanted that to be covered up. They wanted that because he was
going to play it straight. He wasn't going to cover up this crime. And we don't have to get too graphic, but I mean, there was some sexual type abuse with this boy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's always the case. I mean, it's a twisted mindset typically in that world. When you're in a killing environment, and killing is what you do, and that's what you do well, and it's fostered and it's celebrated. War sucks. It just does. And I'm not hating on anybody who's got problems with the line between right, wrong, or good versus evil. That blur, I understand why that exists. Mm-hmm. But I also understand that at some point in time, people need to be held accountable for their actions. And I have several members of SEAL Team 6, former and current, who talked about war crimes that they committed.
Well, let me go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was my next thing. So go ahead and finish your thought, though.
But and that hurts some people are wired to be like a Jocko Willink or Marcus Luttrell or one of those guys that Chris Kyle that could just do the job and not care and just go about their business regardless of whether or not they committed atrocities or if they just killed the right person for the right reason. There are people that can just do that for a longer period of time. I think ultimately it eats you away to your core that you can't manage anymore. I just think there's that evilness, that sickness that's inside you for whatever caused you to act like that for that length of period of time is going to ultimately pay its dues later. But not everybody can do that long period of time. There are guys that have come to me and talked to me and know what I'm doing within the community and trying to uncover some stuff and bring to light some things. And, they've talked about some things with me that are just horrific. And it's their cleansing of their soul, almost trying to say, I finally got to tell somebody.
Yeah.
They'll never say it outwardly to anybody because they don't want to be ostracized. I mean, that's what keeps that together, that brotherhood, even though it's dysfunctional.
Sure.
I mean, it is completely, steroids are running rampant. Cocaine use is running rampant. Alcohol use, heroin is running rampant within the SEAL community. Anything to numb those memories they're doing. And then anything to get back up and ready to go rock and roll again. That's why they take the steroids. So it's a cycle of just disgusting behavior that is ultimately brought on by our government.
Yes, and it's compounded because I think you could, in theory, you could be a Boy Scout, be a Navy SEAL, and kill people, kind of like the way that the guy was portrayed who was the sniper in Saving Private Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of that model of he's reading his Bible, he sees no evil in taking out something that's evil that's trying to kill him to protect his homeland. And if that's really what it is, I think morally you can justify that. And
Agreed.
live with yourself. But when you know that you're holding up a false narrative or it's being done under false pretenses, and even if you don't know that, but the people above you are rotten to the core and you're having to serve their orders, that would create just such a weight on your soul. I want to read what this is directly from you that I cut and pasted from Instagram. And this is what just killed me to hear. And then I want to have you back it up. You wrote, Jocko is evil. Luttrell is evil. Chris Kyle was a fucking animal. I believe he was murdered by team guys, not some poor PTSD Marine who has no skills. I think he was about to talk about the shit they did over there in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm all for killing bad guys, but killing women and children for no reason other than their ethnicity is wrong. And stealing cash from pallets of cashmen to pay off mullahs and buy information, then using it to buy heroin and shipping it to the States to sell to violent gangs, that makes you a drug cartel. I wrote back, I hate every bit of this. And then you said, it nearly caused me to have a breakdown. I had to step back and realize our nation is great, but our government is evil because we, the people, allowed the cancer to metastasize and grow over the last 100 years, asleep at the wheel.
Yep. And it's sadly, Jocko is the prime example of looks great, doesn't have a whole lot of bite. It's like the bark and bite. He's a guy that looks like he's got a big bark. He's ready to rock, and he will scare the shit out of you because he's got that command presence.
He sounds like a leader. He's got the voice. He looks,
writes all the books. He knows he checks all the leader boxes. If you're going to one of those leadership seminars, he's the guy you want to go check the box for and go see. The reality is that he was a subpar SEAL who went on one live mission, and during that live mission, his interpreter was killed. So that's the extent of his live Navy SEAL history.
Now, his interpreter was killed, or he killed his interpreter?
Well, I'm not accusing him of murder. I'm just going to say that there were rumors out there that he killed his interpreter. I don't know for sure. Probably. I can't imagine why you would kill your interpreter. He's kind of need him.
You'd think, but based on everything else you said, maybe his interpreter had something on him and was going to play it straight.
You never know. I can tell you that what the SEAL community, the brand, puts out in front as the face of the community is typically the least skilled of them all, except for Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle was an animal. He could kill at will and didn't care who he killed. Sometimes he killed just for the fun of it. He would shoot just to shoot. And it was almost like from people that worked with him and were on missions with him, it was as if he was at the range working on his marksmanship. Oh, that one's 2,200 yards away. I can get that. And it may not even have been a legit target. So when you think about the number of people that were killed, and they kind of alluded to that in the story about him, that he had this he was the I forget what it is, the killer of Ramadi, or whatever his title was that he had over there, that he was just just killing indiscriminately. and that, he came back and he had all these issues and he went to therapy and he's like, I didn't kill anybody, didn't need to be killed. And if you can rationalize that why you kill somebody, and like we talked about with the sniper from Saving Private Ryan, if he can say that with his God and his belief in his God that this is righteous and just and that's why he's doing it, then I guess he can deal with that. And Chris Kyle may have found a way to do that himself. But I ultimately think, and there's not a part of that story that was such an anticlimactic ending to say that he was helping fellow vets with PTSD and he just got caught off guard and got whacked by some low-level Marine who probably saw a buddy get blown up or what. And I don't even know that the supposed Marine story, but they made it seem as if he was some non-threatening low-level Marine. Even the guy that played him looked a little bit milquetoast. So I don't buy for 1 second that Chris Kyle got whacked by some Marine out of range doing some PTSD shooting thing.
Yeah, sure.
Do I think the teams killed him? I don't think so. Only because every SEAL that I've ever talked to, and I've had some threats against me, and I've had some phone calls from SEALs who didn't like what I was saying and told me I need to watch my back. And I started to think, all right, am I digging a hole and putting my family at risk? And one of the guys from SEAL Team 6 said, listen, man, outside of the team environment in a combat zone, we're all just a bunch of fucking pussies, is what he told me. He goes, I don't think you have to worry about SEALs coming to kill you. He goes, that's just not our thing. He goes, that's not the way that works. He goes, now, do I believe that, the deep state, the CIA, whoever you want to name an agency, a 3-letter agency, would they have possibly done that? Absolutely. And patterns have shown that that's kind of what they do. When they need to end an uprising or someone who's about to talk about something that could basically blow up the whole narrative of why they've been overseas for 20 years fighting a war that was based off, a fabricated event on 9/11. That could probably cause a lot of problems amongst the general populace trust within the government. So it wouldn't surprise me if Chris Kyle was killed by, one of the 3-letter agencies.
Right. Yeah. Well,
and I just, that's all of those, Marcus Luttrell, Marcus Luttrell, his story on what happened that day is a little bit different than the story that I've been told by people who were privy to the reports on what actually happened. That it wasn't the band of brothers up on the hill, fighting it out to the death, and he falls down the mountain and, gets shot a bazillion times, breaks every bone in his body, and gets rescued by an Afghani family and get nursed back to health and rescued. That's not the story, according to people that I've talked to. And again, I'm not stating that any of them weren't heroes that day, that they didn't fight hard. I don't know anything to the contrary of that. I just know that the story the movie dictated was not the story of what actually happened, according to the information that was given. And for that, and you look at Marcus Luttrell, I feel sad for him because I think he was created against his will. Like, I don't think he wanted that role of being the guy that was in the. I really don't. His body language doesn't scream like he's not the guy that's going. He's not Rob O'Neill, right? Rob O'Neill loves the attention, loves being out in public and talking, getting drinks bought for him, and having good time in every city he goes to. Marcus Luttrell doesn't look like that guy. He looks like a guy that was put into a situation or has his ass over a barrel and was told this is how it's going to go and this is what you're going to do. And I think his part of the deal is his brother got into Congress.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Wow.
There's a lot of that the SEAL community does to buy you favor within the community. And there are guys I was told that Jocko Willink was almost exiled. Like they told him to turn in his trident. Like he was almost court-martialed a couple times. And but what they do is they tell you you're done, and then they go, after you're out, they bring you back in. And they go, listen, that was all for show. We didn't want the guys thinking that you were going to get away with anything. Here's what we're going to do. and they put you on this trajectory to, whether it's a book deal or multiple book deals or a podcast. It was for a while. They were opening up MMA gyms all over the place. There were Navy SEALs, MMA gyms. I mean, they had actually switched from a certain training to MMA training as part of their, that's actually what they were training in to be Navy SEALs when they were already on the teams. That was their hand-to-hand combat, was MMA training. And they were then going out and opening up branded MMA gyms, and all the money for those gyms was coming from the Navy SEAL Foundation. So it's been so many different levels of money laundering and gaining favor through financial gifts, or buying 1 million copies of a book to get you a #1 bestseller on New York Times. And then that alone gets you every TV station and news channel there is to do an interview and book signings. And then it takes off. Even if it's a shitty book, it automatically jumps up to New York Times #1 bestseller. And all of a sudden you have credentials to go and talk about who you were as a SEAL and why your book is so awesome. And now you are on the talk circuit.
Yeah. Right. Now, I want to go back real quick to one person that we both agree would have been a hero that we can look at. There's fewer and fewer of them these days, it sounds like. But John Chapman, I interviewed his sister. You made that connection. John Chapman was the first combat controller, I believe, to get, was it Congressional Medal of Honor?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, that was posthumously, if that's how you say it.
Posthumously, yep.
Posthumous. Thank you. So, but yeah, that's an incredible interview. I wish it would have gotten more views. I probably just did a sucky thumbnail, but I need to re-release that, because his story, dude, is like, I mean, you told me, you said, try to watch this and not cry. And you sent me like that 12-minute video that's taken by a drone, and you can actually see this man fight to, if nothing else, to protect, his brothers, for like, I don't know, 12 hours or longer.
Yeah, he was up. He killed a bunch of people. He led the charge up the mountain. Slabinski was behind him. Killed a bunch of guys in a bunker. They were getting shot at from all different angles. They were all over the place, and he got shot a bunch of times. Fell, hit his head, was unconscious. That's when the SEALs left the mountain, left him up there to die. They didn't check him to see if he was alive. They just bailed over the side of the mountain and waited for the QRF to come in, which was a bunch of Army Rangers, Special Forces guys, to come in and help clear the mountain and save everybody. Well, during that period of time, as the QRF was coming in, Chapman wakes up from his being unconscious and fights for another, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was. It was pre-dawn to dawn, and ended up succumbing with 20-some wounds.
Yeah.
And died there after. But after, being shot a bunch of times, being knocked unconscious, getting back up by himself, fighting everybody on that mountain that he could fight till he died. And that's fact. That's not some folklore that somebody's passing down through the ages. That's truth. And that's the part where when I look at what's going on in our world and our government, I want the truth. I want facts. I don't want interpretation. I don't want spin. I don't want a narrative. I don't want the brand. I want to know what happened. And, you and I can both agree that, 9/11, while I think the piece that got us into this final chapter of our country's story, I believe there's going to be either an ending to it or a rebirth of it. But I think it all started 100 and some years ago. I think the destruction from within of our government started that long ago in the 1860s, post-Civil War. So you can track, if you go back and deconstruct our country and go back and see how things became globalized within our country, within the government, the globalist mission. You can follow that all the way through from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, post-Civil War, to the beginning of the Federal Reserve, to all of the things that happened, the League of Nations, the beginning of the UN, the NATO, all those things that become the EU Parliament, all the things that become this global voice versus the national sovereignty started years ago. But 9/11 was the thing that took us over the slow trickle to open the faucet up full blast.
Yeah.
Even though people weren't paying attention to the fact that it was open up full blast. And I was one of them.
Have you ever read have you ever read the document called, I mean, I may get it backwards here, but Quiet Weapons for a Silent War?
No,
Okay.
I gotta read that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll put it in the links, actually. I got it on PDF. So it is from one of the original Bilderberg meetings. And, the Rockefellers, they're one of the internationalist, globalist families that you were talking about without saying their name. They, at that first Bilderberg meeting, they put out like a pamphlet. It's, maybe, I'm guessing 20, 30 pages long. But the first few pages are amazing. And the way it got into public hands was there was a big army surplus. No, not army. There was a surplus sale, and either the army was selling all these printers and copy machines and all this back in the 70s. And somebody bought one. And inside of the printer or the copy machine, I can't remember which, was a copy of that pamphlet. And here's the thing. There's a lot of mystery surrounding, okay, was it really from the first Bilderberger meeting back in the 40s or 50s or whatever? Or was it a fake? The thing is, it doesn't really matter, because whoever wrote this in 1975 or whenever it was discovered was basically telling the future. And they were talking about, this is the thing that was supposed to go around to everybody at the table at the Bilderberg meeting. And it was talking about we're overpopulated. We have to take back control. Americans are too sovereign. So we got to use a few different things. And they use this energy model they were talking about. And they were like, we have to shock the system at various times through history, with events that are false. But that gets people afraid. It gets people confused. It's the Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution, and they provide the problem and the solution. It's our reaction that gets us in trouble. Just like me with 9/11, I wanted to believe so badly because it made sense, right? But yeah, you got to read that, and I wish I had more of the bullet points in my mind about it, because it's outstanding the way it talks about either through bioweapons, like a pandemic. It talks about that, and it also talks about terrorist attacks. We could use that, and it's just like, man, this was so perfect. And then the fact that the Rockefeller himself, him and Kissinger were kind of behind the Bilderbergers. Before there was the World Economic Forum, there was the Bilderbergs. And Rockefeller, the Twin Towers were his. Like, it was his creation. He hired the architect, all that stuff. And I am of the opinion now, like you said, it goes way back. And even if they didn't know what they were going to do, it was kind of like, we got to prepare for a blood sacrifice at some point. I mean, it gets very spiritual when you get to, the depth of why are they doing these things? And I think at the end of the day, and tell me your thoughts. I didn't plan to go here, but the original, temptation in the Bible was, you won't die. You'll be like God. If you eat of this fruit, you will be like God. And I think those globalists, the internationalists, they know, like, we want to be godlike. We don't have a moral authority from above. We create our own, and they do have this sense of morality, but it's weird. Where was I going with that? Lost my train of thought.
Spirituality part of it.
Yeah. Oh. So the whole thing with, they're fixated on depopulation, but only to a point. Because a lot of people will bring this up to me. They'll say, well, Jeremy, okay, if they were all about, with the COVID jabs, just killing everybody, they could have just done it. Like, they could have just actually created poison and made everybody take it. And I'm like, no, because then they would lose their power. We are the human capital that their godlike, belief about themselves runs on it. So they don't need too many of us with freedom, because then we could actually rally and take them out in one way or another. What they need is a controllable amount of people that can still provide the economy, the money, the fanfare, the Rockefellers, and you bring it forward to today, these, global politicians are kind of worshiped in a way. So it very much goes back to, they want to be God, and they're willing to do anything to get there.
I think we are in a for the first time, that I can, and I like to believe I'm a student of history, at least a student of the history that I'm interested in, but just typically the stuff that has some sort of a questionable component to it. I like to ask questions, and I certainly follow the rules. And I'm not much of a follower or team player to begin with, but I believe for the first time in as long as I can remember, we are in a spiritual awakening of like I've never seen before. I believe the amount of belief in a higher power, whether it's Yahweh, God, Jehovah, whoever you believe, Jesus, whatever you call him, that there is this belief now that I need to get centered with that being
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what's happening.
Yes.
I don't know who is doing what. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what is up, what is down, what is left, what is right, what is black, what is white. I don't know anything, but I do know this, that if it ends today, I know who's got me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing that I have that I hold on to through all of this. Because people are like, how do you sleep? Like, all you do is like dig. I'm like, yeah, I dig because I want to be the guy that goes, I saw that. No shit, that happened. Like my new saying is, wouldn't fucking surprise me. That's what I say with everything because at any point in time, nothing is off the table now. So
Yeah.
with that, I know that I have to have something that is my roots, something that I hold on to, something that I know is 100% true. And that's my belief in Jesus Christ. And I moved in the middle of nowhere in Missouri and brought my family here. And I bought enough land. I call it Noah's Ark. If anybody ever needs to find a safe haven, you can come to me. I will give it to you. I'll provide that. And God sort of pulled me this direction. So I'm listening to my spiritual side way more than I am my um, inquisitive side because the inquisitive side is great because it's fun for me. I enjoy doing all this research. I don't always enjoy knowing the things that I know because I
Mm-hmm.
think it it takes a piece of me and
Yeah.
puts it in a place that I don't want it to be in all the time. But like 9/11 for me was an awakening for me to go serve again as an air marshal. I was right after 9/11, 9/12. I was online on the FAA website applying to become a sky marshal. Got hired shortly thereafter. Was sky marshal, air marshal, sky marshal slash air marshal for 4.5 years. And I believed that in the beginning that I was doing the work of a patriot to go out and stop terrorists from trying to do that again. And then over time, over the next 4 years, I realized that I was just working for a bureaucratic machine that didn't give two shits about safety or security. They cared about the perception. They cared about the brand. They cared about making my mom and Aunt Flo feel safe to fly back and forth from Palm Beach, Florida, back to Jersey. Like that's what it was for. It wasn't meant to be a deterrent. It was meant to be, I called it a punt.
Mm.
The number of flights that were covered on any given day was a small percentage, 1% roughly. So we weren't necessarily stopping anything. And it became, if we had stayed a covert mission where nobody knew who we were, where we were sitting, or anything like that, it would have been a little bit easier for me to swallow. But it became very apparent who we were, where we were sitting, what we looked like,
Yeah.
what our mannerisms were. And I had grandmothers that would touch my arm and go, "Thank you for what you're doing," and walk to their seat. Like when it turned into that, I felt like a Macy's storefront mannequin at Christmas, and I
Yeah.
would bring up ideas on how to make flights safer, and they'd be like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that." And I'm like, "Well, what are we doing? Like, what is the mission here? What are we really trying to accomplish?" And I realized that it had nothing to do with stopping terrorism. It had something to do with creating another agency. Ultimately became Homeland Security,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
look what's happened from that. And then obviously the Patriot Act. In the beginning they worded it like we were going to save American lives by giving our government the ability to go and do things that they weren't otherwise able to do before in order to stop terrorists from coming to our doorstep ever again. And it turns out it was the single worst piece of legislation ever in the history of our country
Yeah.
because it allowed them to do things like what they're doing to the January 6th detainees, hold them forever as non-combatants, enemies, and not give them due process and hold them forever because they say they're terrorists. And when you can arbitrarily determine a definition for something and change it at will, like they did with COVID, everything became changeable and interchangeable and redefinable. And that's all based on the Patriot Act and the broad scope of power it gave to non-elected government agencies to do um, nefarious things on behalf of the people that we know are trying to destroy the fabric of our nation.
Yeah, no, two things I want to say. One, thank you for what you said about your hope and your the lack of fear, because you said your faith in Jesus Christ. And at the end of the day, man, like what I sense in you is a guy who it's tough to know these things about the world and to have uncovered the things that you and I have both uncovered, you deeper than me in some areas and maybe me in others. But if you have that deep and abiding faith, it's like, now's the time to get close to my creator, because that's where real peace comes from. Anyhow, these globalists that are constantly trying to control everything and all that, they got no peace. I don't believe. They might have temporary highs, but they've got no true peace. So we've got something they don't have. That's one. Two, when you brought up the Patriot Act right then and the Department of Homeland Security, we're tracking, man, because last night I was doing a little bit of research, and I kind of, how you'll find like a sentence here and then on a website, you'll find like a connective tissue there, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at this. I'm going to read one paragraph I put together about how 9/11 directly connects to COVID, and I'm sure it does in many ways, but this is one I did not know until last night. Okay. The Department of Homeland Security, created immediately after the terrorist attacks of September 2001, had an odd provision allowing the U.S. government to purchase and stockpile billions of dollars of experimental vaccines that did not have to be approved by the FDA for use on American citizens during a time of national emergency as defined by the U.S. government. It also changed, you talk about changing definition, in the same thing of the Patriot Act. It changed the government's definition of vaccine to include new technologies. Now, it doesn't say our mRNA, but new technologies being other things that are supposed to, suppress disease or viral disease. In 2000, so that was back in 2002 that all happened. Then 2004, the Project BioShield Act was enacted and signed into law by President George W. Bush, which appropriated $5.6 billion to the Department of Homeland Security for the purchase of next generation countermeasures against anthrax, smallpox, and other CBRN agents. And that's where they get you when there's an other and it's a generic, then it can be anything they want it to be, right? In all, the U.S. government spent at least $30 billion developing, producing, and purchasing mRNA vaccines since 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's up until 2001, or 2000, pre-COVID.
Listen, wouldn't fucking surprise me. That's all I got, man. It's all of it is so, and my best friend is a historian, and that's what he calls himself. He says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a historian. And then he'll go, but, and then he'll jump into one of my things. But I believe that at first the question was, how could they get away with it, right? In my head, how can this be happening for as long as I believe it's been happening and nothing ever happened? Like there's never been no one's going, aha, caught you. And I think it's not designed to give a fuck. I don't think they care. I think that they have the power to make everything go away.
Oh, of course.
They control every aspect of information dispersal, that they can make anything be anything they want it to be. Just like I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, the whole transgender movement and the whole making them the new misguided, distraught, thrown away members of society that need to be uplifted and propelled to some level of notoriety.
It's the new black.
Yeah. And it's designed to create the opening for pedophilia to become part of our culture, so that it no longer is a crime. And when it's no longer a crime, then all of the stuff that, obviously Ghislaine Maxwell went to jail for trafficking children where there were no customers, apparently. And she went to prison for it. But I don't know if anybody's ever gone to jail for murder without murder actually happening.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think they had to have one scapegoat, but there's not a single client that's ever been listed, just like you said. Whereas January 6th guys just walking around, they're still in jail. So you're right.
And I think it's all to get that to be normalized. And when that happens, you're going to see some shit. Once that becomes part of the fabric of our culture, where pedophilia, which, obviously has been around. I mean, look at the Roman Empire. I mean, pedophilia was rampant. And in most cultures it was.
Yeah, pagan especially, yes.
Yeah. So I think they're trying to get back to that type of acceptance and to dehumanize and demoralize and despiritualize our nation, because it's really America that's holding it up.
Yes.
Like, we're the ones that are going, you know what? Nah. We're not doing this.
You're stating very clearly, Matt, why I said earlier that like there's a weird spirituality if you start to dig, but now you don't even have to dig that far. It's becoming pretty apparent when they're trying to socially transition, you know, your kids at school and stuff like that. So you're on the money, man.
The patterns are all the same. And again, if anybody can ever do anything to help themselves, it's to take a step back, look at everything that you have in your gut and said, that's kind of whack. And look at how things were. If you really just look at how things happened and then take that thing and what you saw and look at the next thing that you think is a little bit whacked, and you're going to see it may be, I always say COVID was our generation's nuclear fear, right? So in the 1950s, they're showing cartoons about how you hide under your school desk and the nuclear blast goes off and somehow you live, right? Or not. And, the whole fear of the boogeyman, Russia and the Soviet Union and nuclear war, nuclear holocaust. And what did that do? That created multiple chains, verticals of income for billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of research for nuclear medicine, nuclear wars, nuclear warheads, nuclear energy, all this nuclear became now strings of vertical markets for companies to get into and make billions of dollars, and then for politicians to get fed through those. So it's all the same thing with COVID, with vaccines and masks and ventilators and whatever else. They use the same boogeyman scare tactic. They just change the name of it. And the goal is to create opportunity and make money for the elite to make their money and the politicians to feed off of it.
I've always felt like what a shitty scare tactic with COVID, like something that almost everybody gets well from. They've got to fake the death counts. Like at least nuclear bombs is like a real thing that could take out millions of people in one shot. That's something I could get afraid of a little bit. But COVID, the only thing I was scared of early on was, as a man, not really knowing what it was about. That was annoying and kind of like, am I wrong on this? And the other part, I guess I was scared for about a day of, wow, like I'm not going to get this vaccine and I'm going to feel a lot of social pressure. I wouldn't call that fear as much as just like this anxiety. And then I just said it as I told my wife, I was like, should I get the vaccine? You think? And she was like, are you crazy? And like, it brought me back to earth real quick. So yeah, I married a good one. I want to do one last thing with you, Matt. And I really appreciate you staying on this long. I didn't expect us to do this, but we were tracking there. I want to play one video that is, it's maybe a year or two old. And when I first watched it, it was kind of during the time we were talking more. And I thought, man, if Matt ever comes on my show, I want to get his reaction to this. And you're such a huge fan of Jocko Willink. I just figured I'll play this. I don't know how long it's going to be relevant, but it's 5 minutes if we watch the whole thing. And I want to get your take.
Tuesday, 9:47 a.m.
Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on the plane. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. And I'm so sorry, babe. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
Jules, this is Ryan. Listen, on an airplane that's been hijacked, and things will go well, and it's not looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. So have a good time. Same to my parents and everybody. And I just totally love you, and I'll see you later. Bye, babe.
What are those people going to do? All the elevators are blocked out.
In a country that most people would struggle to find on a map, in a compound that few possess the courage to enter, men from my previous life took the fight to our enemy. In that compound, they found men that pray 5 times a day for your destruction. Those men don't care about your religious beliefs. They don't care about your political opinions. They don't care if you sit on the left or the right, liberal or conservative, pacifist or warrior. They don't care how much you believe in diversity, equality, or freedom of speech. They don't care. I'm sorry you've never smelled the breath of a man who wants to kill you. I'm sorry you've never felt the alarm bells ringing in your body, the combination of fear and adrenaline as you move towards the fight instead of running from it. I'm sorry you've never heard someone cry out for help or cried out for help yourself, relying on the courage of others to bring you home. I'm sorry you've never tasted the salt from your own tears as you stand at flag-draped coffins burying men you were humbled to call your friends. I don't wish those experiences on you, but I do wish you had them. Most will never understand the sacrifice required to keep evil men like those from that distant compound away from our doorstep. But it would not hurt you to try and understand. It would not hurt you to take a moment to respect the sacrifices that others make on your behalf, whether they share your opinions or not. It would not hurt you to take a moment to think of the relentless drain on family, friends, and loved ones that are left behind, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. Ideas are not protected by words. Paper and ink may outline the foundation and principles of this nation, but it is blood, only blood, that protects it. In that dusty compound, a man you have never met gave everything he had so that you have the freedom to think, speak, and act however you choose. He went there for all of us, whether you loved or hated what he stood for. He went there to preserve the opportunity and privilege to believe, to be, and to become what we want. You have the choice every day as to which category you want to be in which direction you want to move. You have that choice because the best among us, the best we ever had to offer, fought and bled and died for it. Don't ever forget that.
So I think everything we've said is blasphemy now. And dude, I'm back where I was 4 years ago.
He's good. He checks every box. Except for the one that he's not who he says he is. Well, he's not who he's being portrayed to be.
Well, take it away from Jocko. What about that, they're showing the calls from the planes, and they're, obviously they're tying it to 9/11, and that's why these men fight. Don't care what your politics are, yada, yada. Like, people are going to see that over and over and over again. And for some people, it's going to make their, they're going to get their patriotic pride going and all that. And I get it. I've been there. What is your message to people now?
Man. Well, I guess three things. Number one, we have 50 states in this great country. Find one that fits you. You don't have to be any place. If anything COVID has done is helped us realize that most jobs can be done on a Zoom call. That's just, there's no more requirement. Oh, I work in New York City, or I work in Philadelphia, or some other shithole, and you've got to go there every day because that's where your work is. Well, work can be anywhere. Don't be stuck. Find a place that you can call home, that you feel you're around people that are like you and have the same interests and values and beliefs as you, that if, the zombie apocalypse happens, they're all going to be pointing guns in the same direction, right? That's number one. Number two, it is not a bad thing to believe in a greater good. However, you should never do it blindly. That there should be some level of skepticism ingrained in you, that just as a defense mechanism that allows you to be able to deal with, I tell people, and what I was doing during COVID a lot was just trying to help slowly rip the Band-Aid off, so that in case it became as traumatic as it ended up becoming, that people wouldn't have trauma from it, like long-term trauma. PTSD is basically your brain's inability to cope with an event it was not prepared to handle. And I want people to be able to be prepared to handle some shit that's going to happen. And the more you allow yourself to have a little bit of a skeptic mindset, not all in on anything. I'm as constitutionally conservative as there is, but I'm politically as libertarian as there is. Like, none of these people really interest me. I'm not any of them. So everything I have is from a position of skepticism. I live in this world where I'm like, I think the country will survive, but it may not survive in the form in which we're currently living under, which may not be a bad thing. And finally, in all of it, I hope everyone gets to the point where they are at peace with the footprint they've made in this world. I've lived my life with intention to be as memorable and remembered as possible. Not everybody has the ability to do that and wake up with that much intention every day, but I think there has to be some part of you that goes, if it all ended tomorrow, will I be remembered? And I was doing a public speaking event at a sales company or something, and I asked a question about how do you want to be remembered? And the CEO actually raised his hand. He said, I heard from another speaker that you actually die twice, once when you take your last breath and a second time when your name is spoken for the last time. And I never want to, we're all going to die. I never want to die twice. And I want my name to be remembered. And that's why I do podcasts and I'm social media and wrote a book and like all the stuff that I've done. I want to have enough touch points out there so that at some point in time, 100 years from now, somebody's going to read my book and go, oh, Matt Cubbler, boom, still alive. For me, that's my goal. And that comes from my knowledge that I'm going to be in heaven and that my family is my legacy, and that what I put into my children is the thing that's going to carry me through the point of never dying twice. So having that intentionality in your life and making sure you're raising your children to respect your life and the legacy that you've created for them is kind of where I've transitioned to that a while back. And I really hope people can get off the fear train and really start living that intentional, loving life of the people that are around them and who they are and what they've done in their life.
Yeah, no, that's a great word, my friend. I as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, this is so solid. I wish this was closing out my whole thing. I've got a few more little things I'm going to play on the list here. But I want to tell everybody you've got a website, mattcubbler.com, and you've got a book out. I forget the name of your book, but you can tell us.
Brother's Love, a memoir. It's a book about my brother, Andy, and I growing up. My brother was autistic and had a severe stutter and sadly died 34 years ago in a car accident. And so it's just my legacy for him and our life story. And I wrote it a long time ago. I wrote it in 2006. Yeah, but it's still poignant today.
Okay, well, good, man. Thank you for sharing that. And dude, it's been very enlightening. I knew it would be a good one when you came on. And anytime there's something in this avenue going on in the news or whatever, I'll give you a buzz. And I'd love to have you back on again sometime.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks, Matt. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right.
Take care.
In the following presentation, we will expose to you independent verifiable evidence proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the 9/11 attack was a state-sponsored, false flag black operation involving a carefully planned and skillfully executed deception at the Pentagon. Relying on detailed interviews with eyewitnesses to the event, the flight path of the jet that allegedly struck the Pentagon and was seen flying treetop level over Arlington that day is conclusively established. As you will see, this flight path is very different from what the government reports, and we will explain the significance of this discrepancy momentarily. But first we'll go over what initially made people suspicious of this event. Unlike the attack on the World Trade Center, the attack on the Pentagon was not broadcast on live television. In fact, within the first hours of the attack, the FBI had confiscated video footage from dozens of locations, the vast majority of which has never been released. All of the images that the public does have were taken in the aftermath of the event. These available images left many puzzled as to how the damage could have been caused by the impact of a Boeing 757. There was a distinct lack of visible airplane debris on the lawn in front of the building, and very little reported inside. Although a relatively few amount of scraps and plane parts were photographed, none have been positively identified as belonging to Flight 77 or tail number N644AA, and there were no photographs of large fuselage sections, wings, or recognizable pieces of the tail, as is usually the case after a plane crash. Additionally, although this image of the damage after the roof collapsed is typically what is used by the media, the pre-collapse damage of the building seemed incompatible with the dimensions of a 757. Windows were still intact where the vertical stabilizer would have hit. Although these windows were considered blast-proof, it's not reasonable to suggest that they would be 757-proof. Oddly, just beneath these windows, right in the center of the hole, column 14AA on the second floor remained intact. The columns in the area where the right wing and engine would have entered appeared to have been blown up and out, as opposed to having been pushed in, as would be expected if a plane had impacted. The damage is primarily at ground level, indicating that the massive Boeing would had to have slid on its belly into the bottom floor of the building, with the huge RB-211 engines digging into the concrete. And yet there is a conspicuous lack of damage to the foundation in all of the aftermath photos. The following plane crash examples show how damage and charring is to be expected. Yet none of these images from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, taken by photographer Jocelyn Augustino on September 21, 2001, a mere 10 days after the event, show any signs of damage to the foundation at all. The lack of visible foundation damage is underscored by an important scientifically validated fact that also fatally contradicts what we have been told. Using the reported speed and other values from the 2006 released NTSB alleged black box data, Pilots for 9/11 Truth has calculated the G-forces required for a 757 to descend to the level of the light poles and pull up to enter the building low and level as required by the physical damage, and found it to be aeronautically impossible. This is the case if we simply consider the obstacles and decline in topography in relation to the official flight path, but it gets much worse if we factor in the NTSB reported altitude of 699 feet above sea level. So the physics of flight mathematically prove the official story impossible. All calculations demonstrated with scale animations are available in the presentation 9/11 Attack on the Pentagon by Pilots for 9/11 Truth. These dubious facts concerning the physical evidence and the physics of the event added with a deliberate lack of transparency by the authorities when it came to the evidence in general, led many to doubt the official account of what transpired that day. Numerous alternative theories were put forth, but they were mostly speculative. In 2006, Citizen Investigation Team launched an independent investigation into the event. We traveled to Arlington, Virginia to speak with eyewitnesses who were on the scene that day, especially individuals who had a good view of the final seconds of the plane in flight before it allegedly impacted the building. The purpose of this expedition was to establish the true flight path during this critical period, as reported by the independent eyewitnesses on the scene, in order to compare this information with the physical damage as established by photographs, video, and official reports. In tandem with the inception of this independent investigation, the government has responded to this effort with the quiet release of significant official data sets. Most notably, flight data recorder information allegedly from the black box of Flight 77, as released by the National Transportation Safety Board in 2006, and the alleged radar data released by the 84th Radar Evaluation Squadron in 2007. The NTSB data definitively establishes the officially required flight path of the attack jet, and the 84 RAIDS data establishes where all of the planes in the airspace near the time of the attack had to be according to the officials in control of this data. However, the true flight path as reported by the independent eyewitnesses definitively contradicts this government-controlled and supplied evidence, proving it has been manipulated as part of a very deliberate deception and cover-up. The very notion that the government would manipulate their own data is alarming enough. However, there would be a second implication that is much more disturbing, yet equally unavoidable. That implication is this. If the plane did not fly where the physical damage in the government-supplied data says it did in the final seconds before the explosion at the Pentagon, it did not hit the building. Naturally, this would explain why the physical damage has been considered so questionable and anomalous. In the final seconds before the alleged impact, a plane on the officially required flight path would have flown south of Columbia Pike, south of the Navy Annex, and south of the former Citgo gas station at all times. As it turned out, the eyewitnesses reported the complete opposite, proving the plane did not hit the building and that the physical damage had to have been staged. 13 eyewitnesses from the 5 most critical vantage points unanimously confirmed the plane crossed to the north side of Columbia Pike, flew directly over the Navy Annex, and north of the former Citgo gas station, irrefutably contradicting all official reports, released data, and all physical damage alleged to have been caused by the plane. First, we'll present the required south side approach, as indicated by all official reports, data, and the physical damage. Number 1. The 9/11 Commission.
The following is a time-lapse depiction of the flight path of American 77.
South of the Navy Annex and south of the former Citgo. Number 2. The alleged black box data released from the National Transportation Safety Board in 2006. Scale animations created by FAA-certified pilot and founder of Pilots for 9/11 Truth, Robert Balsamo, based off heading provided by the NTSB. The NTSB says it flew south of Columbia Pike, just south of the communications antenna on the Virginia Department of Transportation's property, south of the former Citgo gas station, and directly over the Route 27 overpass bridge to hit the light poles and enter the building entirely on the bottom floor. Take special note of the location of the bridge and the depicted trajectory of the plane. But don't forget, although the southern approach heading reported by the NTSB does match with what was reported by the 9/11 Commission, The final altitude reported was 699 feet above sea level, making the final descent and pull-up to hit the light poles and be low in level as shown in the Department of Defense 2006 release security video physically impossible. Number 3. The physical damage, starting with the down light poles as depicted by defense contractor Integrated Consultants and officially endorsed on the State Department website usinfo.state.gov. The plane has to fly directly over the bridge in this exact trajectory in order to hit the light poles. Light pole 1 on the south edge of the bridge allegedly speared the windshield of Lloyd England's taxicab. Light pole 2 on the north edge of the bridge was hidden on a steep hill in the bushes, completely unnoticeable to passing motorists. Light pole 3 was off to the side in the median of a cloverleaf exit ramp. Light pole 4 was concealed on a decline with a guardrail in front of it. Light pole 5 was also concealed on a decline. So the exact location of the light poles is only acknowledged by corporate proxy, as they have failed to address this in any official report. In fact, the Virginia Department of Transportation is in control of light pole maintenance, and when asked via Freedom of Information Act requests, they denied having any documentation as to the exact location of the poles that were allegedly downed on 9/11 and later replaced. The reason the exact location of the downed light poles and taxicab is so important is because it establishes the required location and trajectory of the plane down to the foot. Even a minor deviation in approach would have left one or some of the light poles untouched and resulted in a different damage pattern. Despite a clear effort by the officials to not report on the light poles and keep the specific details ambiguous, their exact location has been independently established by the photographic evidence, as just demonstrated by defense contractor Integrated Consultants, and further demonstrated by this image taken before the attacks in May of 2000, showing pole numbers 1 and 2 intact on either side of the bridge. In this image from 9/11, both poles are downed. These 2 poles on the bridge in particular are the most important of the 5 because they were the furthest south, making it physically impossible for them to be downed by any type of aircraft at all approaching from the north side of the gas station, as reported by all the known witnesses in this critical area. Number 4. The officially commissioned Building Performance Report by the American Society of Civil Engineers. They published the following images depicting a southern approach angle of the plane. But the true purpose of this report was to document the damage to the building. They covered each and every damaged column and depicted the overall damage as being directional, exclusively requiring the depicted southern approach angle of the plane as referenced in all official data and reports and published in these images. Note the definitive trajectory of the damage to the building depicted. Starting with the anomalous alleged impact into the outer facade of the building's E-ring, ending with the curious, almost perfectly round alleged exit hole in the C-ring. The ASCE also established the required low and level impact into the bottom floor of the building. They reported on page 28, quote, "The aircraft seems for the most part to have slipped between the first floor slab, on grade, and the second floor." Note how they depict more than half of the left engine burrowing into the foundation that photographic evidence shows was left undamaged. Yet they didn't depict or report any foundation damage. The required low and level first floor impact was also depicted in a project published by Purdue University. Note how they avoided the problem caused by the low-hanging engines of the plane by simply not including them in the animation at all. The plane absolutely has to be south of the Navy Annex, south of the gas station, and directly over the Route 27 overpass bridge to hit the light poles and cause the low and level directional damage to the building as documented and reported. There is no room for error in the official flight path at all, so these critical details should have been easily confirmed by the witnesses. But as you are about to see for yourself, they independently and unanimously reported the opposite, proving the plane could not have caused the physical damage. Virtually all of the following first-hand witness accounts were video recorded on location, and they have been categorized into 5 separate and opposing vantage points. Many of these same witnesses were officially recorded by the Center for Military History or the Library of Congress only weeks after the event, placing the plane in the same location. This eliminates the notion that their accounts are inaccurate from faded memory due to the amount of time between the event and their recorded independent interviews a few years later. The independent interviews in this presentation have been edited for conciseness, but the complete interviews, as well as the transcripts and recordings of all referenced official interviews, are available to view for free at citizeninvestigationteam.com. Vantage point number 1, from the south side of the Navy Annex. Edward Paik, auto mechanic, independent interview recorded November 4th, 2006.
It almost hit these roofs over here.
Yeah.
So when we saw it fly, it was coming from
like this way, coming from there to this way.
Okay.
And then at the time, feeling it looks like it almost hit my roof, that much low. Kind of the body side over the building, and the wing is this way.
Oh, so you're saying the body was over the building?
Yeah, little over here. The body, the stand over body here.
Okay. Body's there, okay.
The wing is the right wing is this way. That's the direction.
All of Ed's illustrations have the entire plane crossing to the north side of Columbia Pike, headed directly over the Navy Annex. All animations of witness vantage points were created by pilots for 9/11 Truth for their presentation 9/11 Attack on the Pentagon, and are based off a hypothetical average of all witness illustrations reported. This is a reconstruction of what Ed describes. Note how the aircraft continues directly over the Navy Annex as illustrated by Edward. If the aircraft were on the south path, as required by the physical damage and official data, this is what Ed would have seen from his position. Ed does not describe anything as such, and has the entire plane on the north side of Columbia Pike, and directly over the Navy Annex, where it was picked up by the next witness, who is an aviator, adding professional credibility to his account. Terry Marin, Program Manager for Sparta Inc. at the Navy Annex. Independent interview recorded June 8th, 2008.
The bottom line is, I was an aviator. I know what an airplane is. I can tell you one thing. There was one of the conspiracy articles, had, it was about 737s. And I will admit that I made a mistake on ID in the airplane. And the reason is because it flew right over the top of me. It's not like...
Right over the top of you. Now, were you between the wings of the Navy Annex or out on the...
I was right at the edge of being on the outer portion, okay? So when the plane went right over the top of me, I was within 10 feet of the edge. I was inside, flew over the top of me, okay? And which is like, it's right on the edge and I'm right here, okay? I then, because I'd already heard about the Twin Towers, immediately ran to the outside, and that's when I watched the airplane and I moved into a position where I could see it. If the Air Force Memorial had been built, the airplane would have ran into it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's the long lines with where everyone else we talked to saw the plane. Now, how long of a period of time are we talking?
Oh, God. What, 13, 18 seconds?
13, 18 seconds, that much?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was flying 350, 400 knots. I say 13 seconds as an aviator flying 500 knots. He wasn't flying 500 knots.
It wasn't?
Oh, no. He was 350, something like that.
The relatively slow speed as described by this professionally qualified witness does not match the 460 knots as reported by the NTSB.
Let me ask you this. What are the chances that the plane was actually on the south side of Columbia Pike completely, or on the south side of the VDOT?
No frippin' way.
No frippin' way?
No frippin' way. He was right over the top of me.
You're 100% certain that it was over the top of the Navy Annex?
I am. He is on the edge of the Naval Annex.
The plane itself would be on the north side of Columbia Pike at that point.
Yeah. I mean, this is Columbia Pike. Okay? There's a fence right here.
Right.
I'm inside the fence.
Yeah.
Okay? But he went right over the top.
So you're saying the entire plane then, including the right wing?
Is the right wing hanging a little bit? I mean, there's only how much?
No, I'm saying over to the north side of Columbia Pike. Maybe it's hanging over the Navy Annex, but there's no way it was the plane itself, or even the right wing was on the south side of Columbia Pike?
Nope.
Vantage point number 2 from the former Citgo gas station. Robert Tercios, station employee. Independent interview recorded November 5th, 2006.
We normally get flybys from the airplanes, but it was louder than that. So, I started looking where it was coming from. So, just looking around, and I saw the airplane come down here over the tree.
Okay, let's see where you say it was coming down. We're on the south side of the Citgo station. Robert says he saw it come down over here on the north side. Is that right, Robert?
That's correct. I thought he was going to hit the street here, the ramp. But, so I ran out here to this mound to see if I could see what was going to happen. It was so, kind of quick, maybe 2 seconds when I saw just swoop down here. And, I tried to follow it. And I saw it lift up a little bit, to get over to the side of the bridge here.
To the side of the bridge?
Yes, where you see the do not enter sign.
Right there. So it flew up to go over that?
Yes.
Okay.
My view was, I could not totally see when it hit the Pentagon. All I saw was it headed straight to it, and then the big explosion, just a fireball and lots of smoke.
Okay. Did you see it actually? So you didn't see it hit the Pentagon?
No, the view is not as. It was obstructed still. I could only see the fireball from the explosion.
Did you see it hit any light poles?
No, I may have missed that. I just saw it pick up.
The plane cannot pick up at this point in order to hit the building low and level as required by the physical damage and depicted in the security video.
Just to make,
You saw it pick up to miss that, rather than hit any light poles.
This is exactly where you saw the plane fly by, right?
Yes. As I said before, it seemed like it was going to crash onto the street here, but it did. I saw it go up a little bit, go up a little bit, headed towards the Pentagon.
As far as how it came over this corner, was it more like the wing or the body? Was the left wing, the right wing, or the actual body?
Oh, no, it was more like the right wing headed.
I gave you this piece of paper yesterday to draw a flight path on. That's your drawing, correct?
Yes. Well, that's correct.
This is the drawing you made of the flight path.
The official story says that the plane came on the south side of the Sitco and hit the light poles and then went on to the Pentagon. Robert, how certain are you that the plane came on the north side of the station as opposed to the south side?
I am 100% sure that what I saw is the plane come out from this corner of the canopy over this side of the canopy.
Robert describes the plane on a path that is irreconcilable with the physical damage, but corroborates what was reported by Edward Paik and Terry Marin. He describes it as being on the north side of his place of employment, the former Sitco gas station, and actually pulling up over the highway. As demonstrated earlier, all physical damage in government data require the plane to approach on the south side. Here's what the plane on the official south side flight path would look like from Robert's point of view. As you can see, this puts him on the complete opposite side of the plane from what he described and illustrated. As an employee who works there every day, this would be a wildly drastic mistake for him to make. But Robert's general placement of the plane on the north side has been proven to be factually accurate, with corroboration from all other known witnesses at the station that day. Officer Chadwick Brooks, Pentagon Police. Library of Congress interview recorded November 25, 2001. Independent interview recorded November 7, 2006.
What side of the station did you see the plane fly over?
Okay, actually from the front of the station. From the front of the station, exactly where we were at earlier, where the yellow Jersey barrier.
Okay, was it more on the, when we're facing the station, more on the north side or to the left?
No, it was more to the left.
More to the left, okay. And was the plane, the entire plane to the left of the station, or maybe portion of it over the canopy of the station?
No, it was more towards the left.
It was the entire plane was to the left station, the wing and everything.
Correct.
Okay.
During this point right here, we were able to see everything. We were able to see everything.
Right.
When that plane came descending across here.
Okay, so it came from up over here.
Correct. See where the trees are at?
Yeah.
Where the trees are at?
And it was descending.
Correct. It was descending. By then it had already been descending.
Okay,
it was
so
basically doing a straight line. A straight line towards the Pentagon. By then it was actually en route, and it was a straight line.
This is an approximate reconstruction of the event when considering Brooks's statements and observations of the plane on the north side. Here is what it would have looked like for him with the plane on the official southern approach. Once again, this would place him on the complete opposite side of the aircraft from his crucial perspective, a ridiculous and virtually impossible mistake for anyone to make, let alone a federal officer who is professionally trained to observe and report. Of course, all the other witnesses in this area prove that he was not mistaken about this simple detail. Officer William Lagasse, Pentagon Police. Library of Congress interview recorded December 4th, 2001. Independent interview recorded November 7th, 2006.
Where did you see the plane coming from exactly? What direction? Did you see it approaching?
Well, I saw it, like I said, from, if you look here where Arlington Cemetery is, right about where those transformers are,
yeah,
that's the first place I saw it. Cleared all these lampposts, or cleared all the light posts.
So it was heading towards you, coming from Arlington Cemetery, over there?
No. It was heading from left to right. It came from FOB2 area.
So you're saying it was it came from to the north side of the Navy Annex, even?
Yes. Now what it did before those transformers, I don't know, because that's the first place I really saw it, was right there. But it was not coming towards me. It was coming from left to right, or from east, or from west to east.
That stone fence that we just zoomed in on over there is the fence to the Arlington National Cemetery.
Yes.
And as far as you could tell, the fuselage was over that.
Yeah, best guess estimate, that's about where the fuselage was.
And how high was it at that time?
About 150 feet AGL.
All right, now how sure are you that the plane was to the north, coming from the north side of the Navy Annex? You're saying it was pretty much between the Navy Annex and Arlington Cemetery? Yeah. How certain are you of that?
100%. Bet my life on it. 100%. Bet my life on it.
Okay, I forgot to get you to draw where you saw the flight path coming, Sergeant Lagasse.
From out of here.
Okay, yeah, make that nice and thick for me. Okay, Sergeant Brooks is going to draw for me on the image where he saw the plane fly. Okay, absolutely. He's going over here to the north side from where he remembers it flying. All right, make that nice and thick for me.
Want it thicker there?
Yeah, sure. I think that's pretty close.
That's damn near perfect from what I saw. And we've never, we've never talked to each other about this
at all.
So neither of you guys have even really talked about this with each other.
Never talked.
Never in all these 5 years, and you both independently drew the flight path line pretty much exact.
I know. The way this has been going, you know, who knew what he was going to put down there, because he was in a different location looking over. But it's right there, which makes me feel good about the way I remembered it.
So you're both pretty much 100% certain that that's what you remember the flight path from?
From different locations, yes.
Now let me ask you this. This is going to sound kind of silly. What are the odds that both of you are mistaken as far as the fact that the plane was on this side of the station and that the plane actually came from the south side of the station?
I tell you right now, you can't say more than 100% because there's no way it was anywhere other than where I said it was.
Yeah.
What about you?
Again, something like that, something of that magnitude.
So to reverse that question, what's the percentage chance that the plane was actually on the south side of the station?
0 chance. Is there less than 0%? It would be impossible for me to have seen through the building, over the roof, to see the plane.
Officer Lagasse bets his life that he saw the aircraft pass to the north of him. Some have argued that Lagasse may have been mistaken due to the length of time between September 11th and his interview filmed on location. However, Lagasse was interviewed via email by researcher Dick Eastman on June 24, 2003, when he said he was on the starboard side of the craft as it passed the station. The starboard side is the right side of the aircraft. The only way Lagasse could have been on the starboard side is if the aircraft was on the north path, as corroborated by Officer Brooks and station employee Robert Tercios. Lagasse emphasizes the fact that the aircraft couldn't have been on the south path because the gas station itself would have been blocking his field of view, making it impossible for him to see.
So it would be impossible for me to have seen through the building, over the roof, to see the plane.
This is what a plane on the south path would have looked like from his location. It's just not feasible to suggest he could have been so wildly and drastically mistaken, and the notion that all of the witnesses at the station are so wildly mistaken in the exact same way is not even remotely conceivable.
There's no way the plane was over here. If anything, the only indisputable fact is the angle was different, that it was closer this way. Mm-hmm. But it had to be on the side. It
had to be on the north side.
There's no way it was on the south side. I can't see. I don't have eyes in the back of my head.
It should be noted that there is not a single witness on the station's property or anywhere in the near vicinity who contradicts them. Yet there are several more on record who corroborate them perfectly, but who were also in a position to see what the plane was doing as it approached, putting them in the perfect place to reveal more specific details about this crucial moment in the flight path. Vantage point number 3, from the north side of the Navy Annex. William Middleton Sr., Arlington Cemetery employee. Center for Military History official interview NEIT 427, recorded December 12, 2001. Independent interview recorded June 6, 2008.
Right up there he came in between, what's that, the Hilton, the Navy Annex, and he started dropping. It was coming, I don't know the name of this street here, but it leads to Henderson Hall.
You're talking about the street right here on the north side of the Navy Annex? On the north
side of the Navy Annex. It was coming straight down the middle of the street, and I wasn't what was going on. And as it come past me, it was dropping.
Okay.
And you could...
Now, you were right here at this time?
I was right here, right there where that truck is.
Okay.
And when he came past me, my sweeper is a 3-wheeler, I could feel the heat.
Oh.
That's how close it was to me.
From the plane itself?
From the plane itself. And as it went down, you could see that he was kind of fighting with it. Then you hear when he kick out on a full throttle. So
draw the way you saw the plane come.
from right up there, he came in between, what's that, the Hilton and Navy Annex. And I seen him, if this is it, yeah, I would say.
Okay. So.
Well, this is our parking lot right here.
Yeah.
That's it came right over the parking lot.
This is exactly where Officer Lagasse placed the plane from the opposite perspective.
About how many seconds do you think you saw the plane for?
About 10. Yeah, about 10 to 15 seconds before impact.
Oh, okay, so it was kind of slow.
It was slow, yeah.
I say 13 seconds. As an aviator flying 500 knots, he wasn't flying 500 knots.
William corroborates Terry Marin's account of a speed much slower than officially reported. Since they were both about the same distance away from the Pentagon by the Navy Annex, they were both in a very good position to judge timing.
But, okay, now you said wobbling.
Wobbling, right. Like, you know, I guess by his descending, he was straightening.
Yeah, trying to
positioning, right. Turn for position, right.
Trying to get in a position, huh?
Right, because where they hit at, they hit right at the, it used to be the heliport.
Yeah.
But they moved all that. They went right to it was a tower, a little tower. They went right for the tower.
William Middleton is a very important witness because if the aircraft was on the southern approach, as required by the physical damage and official data, he would not have been able to see it until after it passed the Navy Annex, if at all. William's view of the aircraft on the official approach would have been completely blocked by the large Navy Annex building on top of a significant topographical incline. The only way William Middleton could have seen this aircraft is if it was on a north path, as described by all the witnesses at the gas station, fatally conflicting with the government story. Vantage point number 4, from the Arlington Cemetery maintenance buildings. Daryl Stafford, Arlington Cemetery employee. Center for Military History official interview NEIT 420, recorded December 13, 2001. Independent interview recorded June 6, 2008.
I looked up, looking in this direction, and I could see the plane over the corner of that the building there.
What building?
That would be the Naval Annex.
Navy Annex?
Yeah.
Now, did it look like it was directly over the Navy Annex, or was it farther to the left of it, or what would you say?
From what I seen, it was to the right of it.
To the right?
It was on this corner of it.
Oh, on the right corner?
Yeah. And where those corners, you can see the building in the background, which is the Sheraton up there. It looked like it came over that. And then it looked like it was just over top of the Naval Annex on the right corner of it.
On the right corner?
Yep.
From right up there, he came in between, what's that, the Hilton and Navy Annex.
And we were kind of stunned and knew we wanted to get out the way or something. It appeared that it was coming right for us, actually. So we knew we wanted to get out of the way, but
you mean it was headed right towards the buildings? Like,
yeah, if it came off that end, it looked like it was just coming straight in this direction.
Oh, okay.
It was on the Navy Annex. It was flat. It was just like it was on top of the roof, landing on the roof. It's just like it barely made it over the roof. And then when it got beyond that point, and we started to scatter, it started to bank to the right, still coming forward.
The officially required low and level southern approach flight path is perfectly straight and absolutely cannot be in a bank for the plane to have hit the light poles and building, particularly at the officially reported speed of 460 knots. This very important detail is repeated by multiple witnesses.
Okay, kind of off of this corner. And down here.
Okay.
Darius Prather, Arlington Cemetery employee. Center for Military History official interview NEIT 422, recorded December 13, 2001. Independent interview recorded June 6, 2008.
As I looked over, I noticed the airplane, nice sized plane, was coming in, and it was like, it may have been about no more than 3 feet above the Navy Annex when it was coming across from there. It was looking like it was coming over here for the buildings where we are over here.
Okay, so
that's
it was
where
right on top of the Navy
It was
Annex.
on top of the Navy Annex.
And it looked like it was headed towards...
It looked like it was headed towards this way.
It appeared that it was coming right for us, actually.
Says this was coming across the building.
That's
it was
the
about,
Navy Annex, right?
This is the Navy Annex. And as it was coming across, it dropped down a little bit.
Towards you.
But angled.
Okay.
As it was dropping down more.
Yeah.
And then it started angling.
Once again, take notice to the detail with which this right bank is described. A significant bank in this manner is irreconcilable with the NTSB data, Pentagon security video, and all physical damage.
As it was angling, you see where the street sign is in the middle of the street. It's like gray from this side, but it shows you like directions how to hit 95 or the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah, the overpass
see that
sign.
overpass sign?
Right, yeah.
So as it was coming across that area, it was on in between from where the gas station is, but more over this way more. In between from where the gas station is, but more over this way more. As I felt it came along in this area, and then it started to go more this way.
So it's banking.
Yes. And as it looked from there like it's heading here, but then it started to back in. And part of the wing of that was like over in this area, but this was the direction that came straight through that little road along there, and it started pivoting up.
Donald Carter, Arlington Cemetery employee. Independent interview recorded June 6th, 2008.
So at the time, you know, all of a sudden we seen a plane fars over the overhead over the Naval Annex, coming from over. So actually, you know, we spotted him. Then the plane actually veered off, sort of like he swerved off, and then he caught, you know, got on track.
Wobbling, right? Like, you know, I guess by his descending, he was straightening.
Would you say it was more on the north side of the gas station over here, or the south side on the far other end?
It was more on this side.
On the north side?
Right on this side.
Okay.
More on this side.
On the north side?
Right on this side.
Okay.
Just the overhead of the naval, he sort of come over.
And you guys were right over here?
Yeah, we was right over here. He sort of came like this center, and then he kind of veered over, and then he went on around like that.
Our biggest thing here is trying to figure out exactly where that plane flew.
Right.
And you guys got a really good look at it being right here.
Yes. I was looking. Man.
So, I mean, some people say that it was far over on the other side of the sicko.
No.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, they must didn't see it.
This is a hypothetical reconstruction of their statements animated from their point of view. Coming from on top of the Navy Annex in their direction, and then banking right headed towards the Pentagon. Unlike the witnesses at the gas station, the witnesses at Arlington Cemetery had a clear view of the plane approaching from the Navy Annex and were able to give detailed descriptions of this significant right bank. This relatively slow right bank is an extremely important detail because the officially required southern approach flight path is perfectly straight and cannot have banked right at all at this point. The Arlington National Cemetery workers do not describe a perfectly straight southern approach as seen here and required by the physical damage and official data. Although all of these witnesses believe that the aircraft hit the building, their unanimously corroborated placement of the plane is in direct contradiction with the required south side approach. All of these witnesses work in the area every day, and as mentioned, many of them are on record with the Center for Military History placing the plane in the same place only weeks after the event. Yet some have argued that they are all mistaken or even lying regarding this, but are accurate regarding the alleged impact of the plane, which was much further away and obscured by trees. Furthermore, these witnesses described how they were running away from the scene for their lives and were therefore not paying attention to what the plane did after it passed them, which explains why they believed it hit the building and did not see it flying away.
Nobody was really trying to look to see if it actually was going to hit the building or not hit the building. So everybody was running in the opposite direction for their lives.
Vantage point number 5. from the Pentagon Heliport Tower. Sean Boger, Heliport Air Traffic Controller. Center for Military History official interview NEIT 299, recorded November 14th, 2001. Independent interview recorded November 1st, 2007.
And I just happened to be looking out the window, and as I was looking out the window, I could just see a plane. And it was actually like 3 minutes later, so the plane was coming directly at us. And when I saw it, I was just in amazement. So I just looked at it, and I fell to the ground and I covered my head.
Let me ask you, how long or how many seconds would you say that you saw the plane for?
Before we hit?
Yeah.
Maybe about, I'd say between 8 and 15 seconds.
10 to 15 seconds before impact.
Oh, okay, so it was kind of slow.
It was slow, yeah.
I say 13 seconds. As an aviator flying 500 knots, he wasn't flying 500 knots.
The NTSB reported the plane's speed at this point at 460 knots, which equals 530 miles per hour or 781 feet per second. At that airspeed, it would only take a mere 3.4 seconds to travel from the Navy Annex to the Pentagon, in direct contrast to the approximately 10 seconds reported by aviation professionals Sean Boger and Terry Marin, as well as by William Middleton, all who were in strategic positions to be able to tell this detail with accuracy.
Where in relation to the Navy Annex was the plane? Did he come
when I saw the airplane, he was practically in front of the Navy Annex.
Okay.
And so he was coming like at an angle. His wings were tilted, so it was almost like he was trying to bank towards the Pentagon building.
So you would say he was kind of almost turning towards the Pentagon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Once again, the significant right bank is corroborated by a key witness, even though this important detail is a fatal anomaly when compared to the official data and physical evidence.
You could see the gas station from there, correct? The Citgo?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say, which side of the gas station would you say the plane was on as it approached? Would you say it was on the left? As you're looking at the gas station, would it be more to the right, like the Arlington Cemetery side? Or would it have been...
on my right and the gas station's left. If I'm looking out the window, if I'm looking towards the gas station, it'll be on my right-hand side. If I'm looking out the window, if I'm looking towards the gas station, it'll be on my right-hand side.
Okay. So, and if you were at the gas station with at the back of the store, with your back to the store facing the Pentagon, it would have been to the left of the gas station. Okay. So it was closer to Arlington Cemetery rather than the highway, Route 27, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's exactly what we've been hearing from. So that it would essentially would have had to have come over the Navy Annex. Essentially, was it over would you have guessed the middle of the Navy Annex, or more to your right, or more to your left?
I would say more to the right also.
Now, describe the tilt that you were talking about as it came, or the turn, or as it was tilting, I guess, to the bank, if you will, or whatever. Can you describe it to me at all in any way?
Well, it just seemed like as he was coming towards me, it just seemed like he was tilting the aircraft to his right.
It started to bank to the right.
Okay. It was almost like not really going in nose first. It's just like almost like at an angle, like a right angle.
Okay. So you almost like he was off course and he was turning to straighten out.
Right.
Like all other witnesses in this critical area with the most relevant vantage points, Sean describes the plane as approaching from the Navy Annex and banking to the right as it passed on the north side of the gas station. Sean is an aviation professional whose job was to watch aircraft for a living, making him an extremely credible witness, particularly from his privileged vantage point in the heliport tower right next to the alleged impact. Although he reported the plane hit the building, his corroborated placement of the plane on the north side proves that it could not have, and he does mention that he hit the deck and covered his head, as would be the natural reaction for anyone watching a plane head directly towards them. From 5 critical and opposing vantage points, 13 eyewitnesses independently and unanimously confirm a north side approach, fatal to all official data, reports, and the physical damage. All of these witnesses have worked in the area for many years and are extremely familiar with the topography and landmarks. Some have been officially documented reporting the same thing only weeks after the event, and others are aviation professionals and police officers who are therefore expert witnesses. Absolutely none of the independent witnesses willing to go on record have supported a South Side approach. None of these witnesses were aware of the implications of where they saw the plane when they were interviewed. Since the release of their interviews in the public domain, all have been made aware of the implications, yet stand by their stories as reported, and none have claimed their accounts have been misrepresented. Most could not see the alleged impact point due to the complex topography and landscape, and admit to running, dropping, or flinching for cover, explaining why they did not see the plane flying away. But their independent and unanimous placement of the plane on the north side amounts to proof beyond a reasonable doubt that it did fly away without hitting the building. Although the witnesses presented so far did not see the plane flying away, we know that some did. Pentagon police officer Roosevelt Roberts Jr. saw the plane flying away immediately after the explosion. He was at the Pentagon South parking lot loading dock only a few steps inside the building during the explosion, but immediately ran outside and saw the plane flying away. He officially testified to this in a recorded interview for the Library of Congress on November 30th, 2001, only weeks after the event.
And then my sergeant, Sergeant Woolridge, Woody, he called and he said, "Hey, Rob, listen, we're going to Threadcon Delta." As I hang up the phone, the plane hit the building. It all came at the same time. Watching the TV, it was almost timed for preciseness. So as I hung up the phone and I ran to the center of the dock and I looked up, and I saw another plane flying around the south parking lot. It's about like 9:12, 9:11 in the morning. And then there was dust and stuff coming from the ceilings, and you could hear people screaming. So what I did was I turned around and I drew out my weapon. I didn't know what was going on. I thought we was being invaded. I didn't know what was happening.
Although Roosevelt was incorrect about the time and assumes what he saw was, quote, another plane flying away from the Pentagon immediately after the explosion, neither witnesses nor official records support two planes near the Pentagon at the time of the attack. Roosevelt describes witnessing a commercial jet immediately after the explosion almost as low as the light poles, and we directly confirmed these critical details with him over the phone in May of 2008.
Let me just ask you a couple of quick questions. There was mainly a couple of specific things. When you had mentioned, right as you hung up the phone, you ran outside. Which parking lot, which dock were you at?
I was in South Parking, and I was at the East Loading Dock when I ran outside and saw the low-flying aircraft above the parking lot.
Okay. Was it a jet, or was it a? Do you remember what kind of plane it was?
It looked like to me at that time a large aircraft liner. It wasn't a jet. It was a commercial aircraft.
Okay. Did it have propellers or did it have jet engines?
It looked like jet engines at that time.
Jet engines. Okay. So how close were you to running outside? Because this seemed to be pretty quick, at least from what your account sounded like. It sounded like literally the explosion happened and then you ran outside. I mean, do you remember how many seconds it was when you heard the explosion and then saw that plane?
From the time the explosion hit till I ran outside. It's a loading dock, and you can run right out to the look out and look off. And then you see the flickering lights inside the area, and then real quick I realized that it was some sort of attack and there was going to be a countermeasure with it.
Right. So how many seconds would you guess?
Maybe 10 seconds tops.
10 seconds tops?
10 seconds tops. Upon impact, I stepped out the little booth that I was in, and the distance between that booth and the edge of that dock is about maybe, I'm like 7 steps away from there.
Wow.
So it was extremely close. You could see that plane just as clear as day. Couldn't miss it.
What color was it? Do you remember?
It was, to me, at that time, it looked like it was silver in color.
Like silver in color, but you saw it over the south parking lot.
Right, and it was like banking just above the light poles, like.
Okay. And
had been no more than 50 feet. It was less than 100 feet.
Wow. Okay.
Because it banked out, and it was like U-turning, coming around and coming out. It looked like, for those brief seconds, it looked like how do I want to say this? It missed the wrong target, and it was going like out of the way, like back to the airport or something like that.
Oh, like, so it's headed towards the airport, it looked like.
Well, no, not heading towards the airport. It's almost like if a pilot misses good, he'll try to do a banking and come around because he missed the target. He missed the landing zone.
Got it. And are you 100% sure it was a jet, an actual jet plane?
Commercial aircraft.
Commercial aircraft, okay.
Roosevelt Roberts did not see the plane approach because he was inside the Pentagon at the time of the explosion. He saw it banking and flying away at less than 100 feet, only after running outside immediately after the explosion. This is why he thought it was another plane. Roosevelt could have only seen the same relatively slow banking plane that all the other witnesses reported approaching on the north side flight path. There is additional evidence that more people saw the plane continue past the Pentagon. Arlington National Cemetery employee Eric Deal was officially recorded by the Center for Military History on December 13, 2001. Although he personally did not see the plane, he said the first thing people reported was that a bomb went off and that a jet kept on going.
The number of us who were working building 123 right after the explosion was like a double boom, you know, kind of shook us, almost knocked us out of our chairs. We got up and ran outside, and the first few seconds very confusing. We couldn't even tell. Some people were yelling that a bomb had hit the Pentagon and the jet kept on going. Some people were yelling that a bomb had hit the Pentagon and the jet kept on going.
Witness Maria de la Cerda is a military musician who was in Arlington Cemetery and not only supports the north side approach, but she also said that she thought that it struck the, quote, other side. Maria's account was documented by the Center for Military History, February 6, 2002, interview number 567. We confirmed Maria's account with her directly in May 2008.
Another interesting thing you said in the interview was that you were surprised that the damage was to the side of the Pentagon that you were facing, and that you thought it had actually hit on the other side.
Yeah, my mind's eye, I saw it hit on top.
On top.
And I saw it lift up a little bit.
One eyewitness said it appeared that the pilot went to the side of the building, not directly in. Again, the one witness seemed to think that the pilot tried to avert going directly in.
My sense of it was not that it was a side impact, but rather that it was on top. My sense of it was not that it was a side impact, but rather that it was on top.
Maria did not report the low and level approach depicted by the ASCE, the security video, and required by the physical damage. Now that we've established how the witnesses support a banking north side approach with nothing on the south side, this means the damaged light poles and taxicab had to have been staged. As unanimously demonstrated by the witnesses, the plane was nowhere near the 5 down light poles. But it was furthest from light pole number 1, which is what cab driver Lloyd England claims he lifted out of the windshield of his cab minutes after the attack. Specifications obtained from the Virginia Department of Transportation reveal that this light pole stood 40 feet tall and weighed 247 pounds. Not a single photograph exists showing the pole inside the cab. Not a single witness exists who says they saw the pole inside the cab or the cab driver removing the pole. Most importantly, they all say the plane was nowhere near the light poles. Yet Lloyd claims he came to a stop sideways on the road, with the over 30-foot-long light pole still sticking out over the hood. And that a silent stranger helped him remove the pole from the car.
A car was coming, well, I guess you call it more or less a van, and I asked the guy, would he help me get the pole out? So he stopped, he never said a word. I said, man, it's mighty quiet, it's so quiet. And he never said a word. He helped me get the pole out. The pole happened to be bent when we pulled the pole out, and the pole was bent, and the bent part took me down to the ground. I fell down on my back, but I held the pole up and laid the pole down, and he got in his van and went on down the road.
This would mean that a 90-ton Boeing traveling 530 miles per hour factored with the kinetic energy of the cab traveling about 40 miles per hour in the opposite direction, would surely cause at least some damage to the hood of his car.
And to clarify, it was the large piece of the base.
It's a large, yeah, the large piece was sticking out across the hood.
Wow.
The pole came right on through to the back seat. If anybody had been sitting in the back, sitting in the front on the right side, the pole would have went through them.
Sure. And it actually was laying on your head then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But there are no scratches on the hood.
The sheer weight and length of the pole, in context with the physics of the scenario described by Lloyd, when compared with the total lack of damage to the hood of the cab, reveals a situation that is beyond implausible. But don't forget, the witnesses proved the plane was nowhere near the bridge, light pole number 1, or the cab, explaining why this scene is so questionable and beyond physically implausible. Lloyd was confronted with this information in June of 2008 and had a very odd reaction. Before the on-camera interview began, unaware he was being audio recorded, Lloyd let it slip that he knew his cab and the light pole were on the bridge.
One guy took pictures. He lives right on 17th Street.
He took pictures of the event?
And he was up on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
He was up on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
He was up on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
He took pictures of the pole.
Oh, the pole, right.
He took pictures of the car.
Right.
And as far as I know, he still has them.
But when the camera started, Lloyd said the complete opposite and refused to admit he was anywhere near the bridge. So what's up? That's the big question, Lloyd. I mean, you said the government never did anything, never investigated your cab or took it in for evidence, right?
No, they did not. And I was interviewed by the FBI once they knew I was still alive, because my wife works for them. And
she works for the FBI?
Yeah, and she said that they were saying that they had a problem trying to locate me. She said, well, I see him every day.
Here's what's going on, Lloyd. We've talked to dozens of people, like I said.
No problem.
Most of them saw the plane for a big long time coming.
Right.
All these guys, they were at Arlington Cemetery right here in the maintenance buildings.
Mm-hmm.
We talked to all the people who were at the Sitco station right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your car on the road, on the side of the road, in this picture, was right here.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, we got pictures of it. Here it is.
My car is not there.
No, we got pictures of it.
No, my car was not there.
I can pull it up. I'll show you.
I don't care what you do. My car was at the Pentagon. My car was not across this bridge.
It was on this bridge. I'll show you the picture.
No, it wasn't. My car was back here. It was not down here. This is Columbia Pike.
What was it down here?
That's where I was driving. I came up off of, I'm coming from Roslyn. And coming from Roslyn, what we call H Road.
So where are you trying to say the car was here?
The car was back here.
Okay. It says, we know that the poles were down here. So you're saying the car was like up here.
That's right.
After a road trip to go physically examine Lloyd's cab from 9/11 that he had preserved under a tarp 90 miles away on his other property in the country, we were able to show him the images proving his scene with the cab and the pole was just south of the bridge.
This picture right here, here you are, you see? The car's kind of surrounded by these guys. There's the pole right here. Now see what this is? That's the cobblestone from the bridge. Now take a look at this. Come over here. Here's the bridge right here. Now there's your cab. It's sideways on the side of the road. With the hole in it, the pole's laying down right over there. The pole used to be up right here. This is pole number 1. Well, you're right on the bridge.
No.
That's your cab, right? Look close. See that?
Facing the wrong way.
No, it's facing the same way. Facing the same way it was right here. This is taken from the other side. This way it's facing. Look at that one.
I've never seen that picture there.
You never saw it? This is Jason Ingersoll. He was a Navy military photographer. Here's your cab, right?
That's not.
See your cab? See it? There's the grill. You see you right here. You're wearing the cap.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
All right. Now there's the pole. That's your pole. See the bend?
Yeah.
That's the pole you pulled out, right? There's your cab. I mean, it couldn't be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it. But see how it's got the cobblestone?
I see the sign.
That's the sign.
But that's not.
And that's the cobblestone.
That's not.
From the bridge.
I see that from the bridge, but that's not where it happened.
Well, how come? It's not where it happened. Well, how did that get there then?
I can't explain that. I've never seen that before.
You never saw?
I've never seen that. The bridge, where the plane went across and where the pole came in, there was no bridge. He took this to the pole, he took this to the car, he was up on the bridge.
But that's the bridge.
That is a bridge, but that's not the bridge.
Well, there's only one bridge in the area.
I know, but that's not where I was.
There's the cab, right?
Okay.
That's the bridge. Here's the signs.
That's not where it happened.
What? So what about this image? Are you suggesting, well, is this your cab?
The only thing I can say is where it happened is it's not on the bridge.
This is what I'm not getting. You're saying, like right here, you can see your cab, right?
I see a cab, yeah.
Well, you see how it's got the hole in there. It's the same cab we just went to go see on your property.
Okay.
And this is from 9/11. You see it smoking still. And there's the bridge. This is the south of the bridge. That's the sign right there.
How far is that smoke back?
I don't even care about that. All I know is you're to the south of the bridge.
But I'm not.
Lloyd continued to refuse to admit that the photographs prove he was located on the bridge. But he already let it slip minutes before the earlier interview started that he knew his neighbor took pictures of his cab and the light pole on the bridge. This proves that Lloyd was deliberately changing his position on the highway for the interview to match up with where all the witnesses saw the plane. We later that night went with Lloyd to obtain the independent photographs from his neighbor, and of course even these images confirmed the same southern position of the cab shown in all other images. Yet Lloyd continued to deny that this is where he was located. Immediately after obtaining the images, we drove to the scene of the crime.
I did not come around that way. not down at this bridge. And he was up on the bridge.
Mm-hmm. Even the picture your friend Mike just showed us.
I can see.
You see that, right?
I can see.
How can that be?
Well, I'm only telling you what happened.
You're telling us something that's completely different from the picture.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, we're on the north side again. You're saying, where were you?
I'm saying that
you weren't even
where these signs are right here.
Were these signs right here?
Right here. These signs right here where I was at.
Before them, north of them.
No, this is where the pictures were taken.
No, they weren't. There's no cobblestone there.
Well, I'm telling you, that's where I was.
There's no cobblestone.
That's where I was.
This is the signs that you see in the images.
I understand that, but that's where I was.
These are the images. The VDOT pole, the VDOT camera pole, all of that. The cobblestone, look at the cobblestone bridge. That's you. You're standing right next to it. See that?
I have no problem with that. I was not down.
See the cobblestone?
I was not here.
That's where you were.
I was not here.
Lloyd was much more candid when he didn't realize he was being recorded.
You know what his story is? Just what I said. You got to understand what you're saying. Not the truth. It's his story. Right. It has nothing to do with the truth. It's his story. This is too big for me, man. This is a big thing. Man, you know, this is a world thing happening. I'm a small man. You know, my lifestyle is completely different from this.
Right.
I'm not supposed to be involved in this. This is for other people who have money and all this kind of stuff.
But you said, wait, what do you mean?
Well, I'm not supposed to be involved in this. I don't have nothing.
So is your point that these people that have all the money,
this is their thing.
This is their event.
This is for them.
Meaning they're doing it for their own reasons.
That's right. I'm not supposed to be in it.
But they used you, right?
I'm in it.
You're in it.
Yeah, we came across the highway together.
You and their event.
That's right.
But they must have planned that.
It was planned. One thing about it, you got to understand something. When people do things and get away with it, you eventually it's going to come to me. And when it comes to me, it's going to be so big I can't do nothing about it. And when it comes to me, it's going to be so big I can't do nothing about it. So it has to be stopped in the beginning when it's small to keep it from spreading.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Lloyd, in essence, admitted his involvement in the 9/11 black operation, but he was cautious not to outright confess. He worked hard to distance himself from the planners, while admitting it was planned. Regardless of Lloyd's true level of involvement, the independent evidence for a north side approach proves the cab and light pole scene staged, and that the plane did not hit the Pentagon. For a thorough analysis of the NTSB-released alleged flight data recorder exposing fatal anomalies, please see pilotsfor911truth.org. For more North Side Approach witnesses and a comprehensive strategy as to how you can take action on this important information, please visit citizeninvestigationteam.com. What you have just witnessed is conclusive evidence proving that the 9/11 attack on the Pentagon was a carefully planned and skillfully executed military deception. As shown, the evidence proves the plane actually flew directly over the Navy Annex and north of the former Citgo gas station, and therefore did not hit the light poles or the building. If you still do not understand why the north side approach proves the plane did not hit the building, please watch this video again and study the images. Again, a plane on this flight path cannot hit the light poles, show up low and level across the lawn as seen in the dubious surveillance video, and cause the directional external and internal damage leading to the curiously round C-ring hole outlined in the ASCE Building Performance Report. It is important to understand that, contrary to popular belief, the Pentagon is not located in the restricted airspace in Washington, D.C., but across the Potomac River in Arlington, Virginia. It is also about 1 mile from Reagan National Airport, so low-flying commercial jets are approaching and departing in the airspace over and near the building every few minutes all day every day. A plane making a steep ascent over the Potomac River is a very common sight. Additionally, fraudulent media reports of a second plane that allegedly shadowed the attack jet and veered away at the last moment were disseminated within the first few days of the attack. While there was a C-130 cargo plane that flew into the scene about 3 minutes after the attack, as confirmed by photographs, video, many eyewitnesses, and the pilot himself, Lieutenant Colonel Steve O'Brien, select media sources falsely reported accounts of this plane, implying and outright stating that it was in the airspace at the same time as the attack. By doing this, the story of a very real second plane seen in the skies minutes later was morphed with the attack in order to later serve as confusion and provide a plausible explanation for the genuine witnesses who really saw the attack jet flying away during the explosion, and not a second plane. This is likely one of the reasons they had the attack jet fly on the north side in the first place. It assured that people who saw the plane flying away just after the fireball could be confidently told that they must have seen a second plane, while simply missing AA-77 hitting the building from the south side. It's now clear that this worked wonders, as Pentagon police officer Roosevelt Roberts Jr. convinced himself that the plane he saw at about 50 feet altitude, flying away immediately after the explosion, was another plane. Also worth noting is that light pole number 1 was the only pole that needed to be staged real-time in the street. The other 4 poles were left lying in the grass, unnoticeable to passing motorists. These poles were more than likely placed the night before. Heliport Tower Air Traffic Controller Sean Boger confirmed that President George W. Bush had conveniently departed from the heliport on September 10th and was scheduled to fly back to the heliport on September 11th around 12 noon, and that Secret Service had been combing the area as usual. So operatives under the cover of Secret Service or Special Security conducting routine presidential security operations had the necessary cover to do whatever they needed to do in preparation for the event. When the interviews shown in this presentation were conducted, none of these witnesses were even remotely aware that their accounts contradicted the official flight path and proved that the plane did not hit the building. They were only willing to talk because they were successfully deceived and assumed that the plane must have hit the building. Despite each having a perfect view of the plane as it passed by them at treetop level, most of them were not able to see the alleged impact point, or in some cases any part of the Pentagon at all. Many witnesses also described how they were ducking and running for cover before the plane reached the building.
Nobody was really trying to look to see if it actually was going to hit the building or not hit the building, so everybody was running in the opposite direction for their lives.
Now that they have been made aware of the implications of seeing the plane on the north side, many have been reticent to further discuss their experiences. However, Officer Brooks said our findings were a, quote, eye-opener, and that anything is possible when it comes to him being fooled that day. Officer Legacy admitted that he flinched when he saw the jet and then jumped into his police cruiser, grabbing his radio.
The first thing I did was I kind of flinched. And ducked into my car. And at the time, I mean, I don't know if it was a reaction, like a fear or whatever, but I ended up in my car.
He admitted that he did not see what the plane actually did as it reached the building because of the fireball.
Did I see what the plane did? No, because there was a big fireball.
Both police officers at the gas station have agreed that we presented their accounts fairly and accurately, and to this day they stand by where they saw the plane, even after being made aware of the implications. They have both stated they would testify to this under oath in a court of law. Meanwhile, their superiors have restricted them from speaking about their experience on 9/11 to the media any longer. Officer Roosevelt Roberts, who saw the plane flying away from the building after the explosion, was also unaware of the implications until speaking with us. Like many of the other witnesses, he is no longer willing to speak about his experience on 9/11. The fact remains that all of these witnesses can be subpoenaed for a grand jury or congressional hearing as a means to sort out who to indict as responsible for this event, so this is what we are calling for. We know that the implications of the evidence presented in this video are very disturbing and frightening. However, hiding from this information is not an option for any of us. It is now your responsibility to get involved, just as we had a responsibility to get this information into your hands. This deception has been used as a pretext for the invasion and occupation of numerous sovereign nations, leaving thousands of U.S. troops and hundreds of thousands of civilians dead and the lives of millions more destroyed. It has been and is still being used to justify torture, secret arrests, warrantless wiretapping, the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, the Real ID Act, and a whole host of other authoritarian programs which undermine the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights. The 9/11 lie will continue to threaten peace, freedom, and justice in the United States and around the world as long as the information presented in this video and all the evidence exposing this deception remains suppressed. Inaction to this information by the current administration, as the fraudulent war on terror is perpetuated under any other name, leaves them not only responsible for the continued bloodshed, but implicated in a cover-up and therefore complicit. Furthermore, inaction by any media, political, or authority figures who have viewed this information amounts to a crime of obstruction of justice. But just as importantly, inaction by any of us would be a grave injustice upon our children and grandchildren, who will suffer the most in a world that is being created under the fear-mongering false banner of fighting terrorism. We are calling on all concerned citizens to join us in a non-violent campaign to force accountability, while demanding an immediate and indefinite moratorium to all military action, defense spending, and unconstitutional programs which emanate from the 9/11 deception.
On September 11, 2001, I had returned back from maternity leave. I had to get Elijah situated in daycare. I walked into the building. I had to clear Elijah to go to the area. There were some things that they wanted me to take care of prior to me taking him to the daycare. I sat down at the computer to actually turn the computer on. As soon as I pressed the button, boom. So at that particular time, based off what happened, I thought I had triggered a bomb. I was covered from my neck all the way down to my back in debris. My son was completely blown out of his stroller, and some of the floors had collapsed within, and people were trapped in between the floors. My son had stopped crying, so I felt strength out of nowhere to actually low crawl from out under the debris to try to find my son. But because there were so many people in that area, whether they were screaming or crying or saying help me, save me, I felt pretty much divided. I didn't know if to help them first or to try to find my son. But I had tried to lift some of the debris to find my son, and I wasn't able to locate him, so I helped the other people with the thought that they would help me find my son. But due to all the hysteria, they just wanted to get out. There was an area where there was a pack of debris. We climbed over it, and in one last effort, I had reached down while there were two people holding my arm. I had reached down under a pack of debris and pulled my son up by his onesie, which is a T-shirt that snapped in between a child's leg. I put him over my shoulder and proceeded to get out of that particular location that had collapsed. And I came out in what is believed to be the entrance or the place of initial impact, and was placed on the lawn that was closest to the highway prior to be transported to the hospital on that particular day. While I was coming out of the Pentagon, I didn't see any evidence of metal, airplane seats, luggage, nothing that would give me any indication that it was a plane that had hit the building. I lost one shoe, so I was walking through the area barefooted. So I was particularly careful to try to make sure I did not step on anything sharp while I had my son on my shoulder. I did not have jet fuel over my body. My son didn't have jet fuel over his body. The people that I helped didn't have jet fuel on their body. So again, there was nothing on the inside that would give me any indication that there was a plane on that particular day that hit the building. Most of the people that were in the area where I was located, and again, I did ask because maybe I was off in my judgment, but in speaking with everyone, it was conclusive that no one else in the area where I was located had seen any parts of planes or luggage or baggage or anything of that nature. Yes, I believe it's something part of much more sinister, and that's why my goal is to try to push for a federal grand jury so that people can be brought forth for perjury and obstruction of justice. I mean, when you go out of your way to fabricate an official story, when obviously the evidence that appears, whether it's footage or the work that many people have done, shows that the official story couldn't possibly be true, then yes, you should be brought to justice. And when people can come together and feel like they can utilize, human beings as lambs to a slaughter, yes, that's what's unpatriotic, that's what's un-American. We'll turn our own people to sacrifice them for whatever their motive may be, regardless that their motive is of no significance, but the fact that they would use, innocent human beings as lambs to a slaughter to perpetrate whatever it is their cause or motive is. Yes, they should be brought to justice, and it's obvious, that the official story is it has been fabricated pretty much.